LoveLore Library. Chapter 273. Kind and sensible, this was the label that everyone had given Chao Hongya at this moment. Jing Yunzhao lowered his head and looked at her, coldly opening his mouth. You guys found this kind of thing to slander me. How can you believe her words? Chao Hongya's face paled, and everyone was stunned. The reporters were even more excited. This was evidence of Jing Yunzhao's arrogance. Saying such words to his sister who had been with him for more than 10 years, bullying his biological parents and beating up villagers wasn't something that he couldn't do. Caw caw. The sound of camera taking became more and more incessant. Jing Yunzhao, you're too much to your own sister. Don't tell me you think that grades represent everything. The reporter immediately provoked. Grades can't, but I've never felt that there was a problem with my character. Jing Yunzhao said matter-of-factly, on the contrary, I feel that there's something wrong with your eyes. Your 3 views are all twisted and sinister. You guys went to the Chao family and even asked them to prove how vile I am. Simply laughable. Don't tell me you guys didn't check when you were looking for someone. How is Chao Weiman's reputation in town? How is Chao Hongya's reputation? Especially Chao Hongya, what kind of person is she? Don't you care? You guys have the advantage in numbers, and I'm alone. So I'm in the wrong. I'd like to ask, what right does Chao Hongya have to question me? Jing Yunzhao approached Chao Hongya and said sternly, you dropped out of school, right? Don't tell me you've forgotten why you dropped out. Or do you want me to help you recall it bit by bit? Fine, you won't say it, you'll hide it, and you'll continue to pretend. Then I'll do it. You hooked up with a hoodlum called Chao Xing. Since junior high, you've been harassing me outside of school. Sometimes you'd beat me up, sometimes you'd rob me. At that time, I was weak and didn't dare to say anything. There was no one at home to support me, so I could only endure it. After I entered senior high school, your actions became worse, causing me to lose all my reputation in the school. Even after I used all my means to explain away the rumors, there were still some people who believed those nonsense. Chao Hongya, do you think that you can hide your true nature and the things you've done just because you're wearing a gorgeous dress? I still have a copy of the photo of you and Chao Xing together. You have real evidence of stealing and destroying things everywhere. Oh right, I almost forgot. You and Chao Xing kidnapped a girl. Not only did you ruin your own innocence, you also ruined another person. Do I have to take out all the evidence for you to review again? Jing Yunzhao finished speaking in one breath, which caught everyone off guard. After he finished speaking, he smiled coldly and took the bag from Su Chu. He took out a stack of things and pointed them at the camera one by one. Chao Hongya stared dumbfoundedly at that thing. She reached out to snatch it, but Xiao Haiqing directly flung her aside. Chao Hongya couldn't stop her at all. After everyone had seen it clearly and was sure that the camera could record everything, he threw it out. One photo after another fell from Chao Hongya's head like dancing snowflakes. The edges of the paper were incomparably sharp. Under Jing Yunzhao's deliberate force, they left streaks of blood on Chao Hongya's face. It was a ghastly sight. Chao Hongya's whole body was trembling. Her mind was blank. Jing Yunzhao actually left a copy of the photo. Back then, he didn't hand over all the videos and photos to the police. That's right. How could someone as sinister as Jing Yunzhao let her off? But, she was too much now. She actually took out those unsightly things in front of so many people. What was she going to do in the future? This matter had blown up so big. There were even live broadcasts here. How was she going to face others in the future? Chapter 274. Chao Hongya's eyes were filled with tears as she bit her lips. She looked like a doll that had been abandoned by the world, as if she would shatter into pieces in the next second. Jing Yunzhao sneered, "Tell me, can you believe her words? A person who only knows how to scheme against her own sister since she was young, a person who only knows how to frame her sister since she was young, a person who only knows how to misbehave, can you believe her? You didn't investigate clearly before questioning me. What right do you have to question me? Even if you ask a few more neighbors and find out what kind of person Chao Hongya is, what have you done?" Hearing her question my words is like hearing the prayers of the Virgin Mary. I can't wait to show it to everyone. Are you reporters? I think you're like evil people who have taken someone else's money and are here to find trouble, right? Jing Yunzhao's continuous words made the reporter's face turn red. This Chao Hongya is actually such a wanton person. It can't be. But these photos are all true. When they first went to the Chao family, this little girl called Chao Hongya seemed to have just cried and looked a little pathetic. They didn't think much of it at that time and expressed their intentions. In the end, when she heard the 3 words Jing Yunzhao, Chao Hongya cried even harder. Only then did they know that it was Jing Yunzhao who had bullied her. This little girl looked very gentle and didn't seem like a bad person at all. In addition, this matter was now known by everyone. Many newspaper companies and website reporters were waiting to dig up more information. After snatching Chao Hongya's interview, they didn't care too much. In this day and age, who liked to hear nice words? It wasn't that no one went to the neighbors, but their supportive words were not worth mentioning compared to the scolding comments online. Even if the neighbors came out to prove that Jing Yunzhao was a good person, no one would believe them. On the contrary, if she was evil to the extreme, it would attract more attention. Just like now, a portion of the surrounding crowd were online busybodies who had specially come to support the Jing parents. This reporter was speechless by Jing Yunzhao's words. What everyone wanted to say was also disrupted. Jing Yunzhao, does this mean that you think it's natural for you to sever ties with the Chao family? The first reporter asked with a guilty conscience. That's right. Jing Yunzhao raised his head and puffed out his chest. His voice was loud and clear. But the grace of raising her is greater than the heavens. The reporter thought to himself and could not help but say it out loud. Jing Yunzhao sneered. He bent down and rolled up his trousers, revealing his knees. Do you know where this scar came from? Chao Weiman kicked me and made me kneel on the glass shards. At that time, I was not even 10 years old. At that time, the ground was covered in my blood. I didn't dare to move at all because even the slightest movement could make me feel the glass shards moving in my flesh. You've never tried it before. If you don't believe me, you can ask the neighbor. I picked these glass shards myself. I was afraid that I would become a cripple after the incident, so I secretly asked the neighbor's auntie to apply medicine for me. She even brought me for an injection. As he spoke, Jing Yunzhao rolled up his sleeves. You can say that I got those scars because I wanted to have fun. I don't have any witnesses, so I can't refute. What about these? 1, 2, 3, 7 to 8 cigarette scars, old and new. It can't be that I got them myself, right? Chapter 275. Jing Yunzhao's arm was especially slender. It was so slender that it looked like it would break with a gentle force. Just looking at her figure made one's heart tremble and ache. Her skin was fair, so the cigarette scars were very obvious. They looked quite old, with 7 or 8 of them. They were very messy, and one could tell that the burns were very serious. The moment the wounds were exposed, the reporter who spoke was speechless. A 16-year-old girl was at the age where she cared about her appearance. How could she have such obvious injuries? It was no wonder this girl was dressed so conservatively. He gulped and retracted the microphone. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. They had never encountered such a strange situation before. A large group of people were looking for trouble with a little girl, but in the end, they were left speechless by this little girl. Her words had a shocking power, causing a trace of guilt to surface in the hearts of those who heard it. However, she did not cry or make a fuss. Instead, she had a very light smile, which made them feel somewhat at a loss. Generally speaking, the people they interviewed, regardless of whether they were persecuted or not, would immediately cry when they saw the camera to let others see their grievances. However, Jing Yunzhao was too abnormal. Jing Yunzhao. You're talking nonsense. You're so vengeful. If you're really wronged, why don't you complain to others? Now, you're lying in front of so many people. You're simply heartless. Qiao Weimin pointed at Jing Yunzhao's nose and scolded. I don't talk to others because I know they don't care about me. Those people won't help me. From my adoptive father's point of view, you will always be right in the hearts of others. Because you did a good deed more than 10 years ago, no one will blame you even if your good deed is riddled with holes. That's why I kept silent in the past, Jing Yunzhao said. Now, it was different. They were all reporters. They could destroy her, but similarly, they could destroy the Qiao family. With that said, Jing Yunzhao's smile at that moment looked abnormally sad in the eyes of others. Su Chu, who was beside him, was crying. She was so sad that she could die. Xiao Haiqing's eyes were red. Looking at Qiao Weimin, she also thought of that dispensable father of hers. It's not like that. It's not like that. Sister, why did you say that? These photos were obviously forged by you. Qiao Hongyet cried and shook her head, still struggling. Whether it's forged or not, you can go to the police station and ask. I did it properly. Jing Yunzhao coldly snorted. Qiao Hongyet's legs went soft. Why did things develop in the other direction? Why is Jing Yunzhao so eloquent? How can she be so calm? Also, why did she carry these photos with her? How could that be? Originally, as long as Jing Yunzhao said something wrong, or as long as Jing Yunzhao didn't speak as calmly as she was now, she would cry and scold her. Then, her unfilial behavior would spread even more fiercely. At that time, she wouldn't be able to make a comeback no matter what. In the future, she could also use this opportunity to push all the dirty water on her onto Jing Yunzhao. But the result was actually like this. Qiao Hongye was stunned. Qiao Weimin also didn't understand the situation. He knew that his eloquence wasn't as good as Jing Yunzhao's. He grabbed the reporter and said angrily, "What nonsense did you let her say? You let her apologize." The reporter's mouth twitched. She leaned to the side and made room for someone else. She didn't have the ability to ask anymore. Let her digest what Jing Yunzhao had just said first. Also, she was really frightened just now. The injuries on Jing Yunzhao's legs and arms were really serious. It was a ghastly sight. She was only 16 years old. She couldn't imagine how a child could endure such abuse. Chapter 276. The reporter took a step back. Another reporter saw that everyone was in a daze and immediately squeezed Qiao Weimin to the side. He opened his mouth and said, "Jing Yunzhao, even if what you said before was true, this isn't a reason for you to despise the poor and favor the rich. If your adoptive parents didn't treat you well, then when your biological parents came looking for you, you should cherish them even more. But why did you refuse to acknowledge them?" Jing Yunzhao thought of the most authoritative paternity test in his bag and felt extremely relieved. Hearing this question, he only felt that it was funny. Then why do you think I should acknowledge them? They are your biological parents. The reporter said matter-of-factly. How many children does the Jing family have? Jing Yunzhao smiled and suddenly felt that it was a little irrelevant. The reporter was stunned. 3. It should be 3, right? When he went there, he only saw a little girl, but he heard that they had a son and a daughter. The 3 children all had to go to school, so their lives were very difficult. Oh, you also know that there are 3. They said that I am the eldest daughter of their family, the one who was abandoned because they valued boys more than girls. I tried to accept them, but Auntie Wang said that as the eldest, I should drop out of school and go home to take care of my younger brother and serve him. The first thing they did when they found their abandoned daughter was not to compensate her for what she lacked, but to take back what she had relied on herself. If it were you, would you do that? The reporter shook his head. Jing Yunzhao, are you admitting that your thoughts are extreme? You are the daughter of the Jing family. Your parents don't have the ability to support 4 children, so it is natural for them to do that. You can't refuse to acknowledge your biological parents because of these external reasons, right? Moreover, your parents tried to repair your relationship with you, but you used your younger brother's safety to threaten them. This is the truth, right? The reporter said. As soon as he said this, a reporter beside him interrupted. It wasn't just a threat. Jing Yunzhao, you and your rich boyfriend beat up these villagers and injured them one by one. Shouldn't you apologize to them? Logically speaking, these villagers were all Jing Yunzhao's elders. For a junior to do such a thing, it was simply unbelievable. Jing Yunzhao looked at the 2 male reporters and said, "You just asked me a question," and he felt that you didn't ask enough, so he asked one more question on your behalf. You 2 are on the same side, so can I say that you 2 are in a relationship? My friend saw that I was being threatened by the Jing family, so she stepped forward to help me. Because we are standing together, does that mean I am seducing a rich man to be my boyfriend? Can your theory be any weirder? That's different. We're both men, what's the difference? There's also love between people of the same gender, Jing Yunzhao casually replied. After saying that, many people blushed. Even if there's nothing between you 2. But isn't it wrong for you to beat up your parents and relatives? Jing Yunzhao, look at your parents. They're already so old and have to raise 3 or 4 children. Your younger siblings are still in primary and middle school. They've been looking for you for so long, yet you're treating them in such a way. Don't you have a conscience? They gave you life, yet you despise them for being poor. The reporter suddenly transformed into a righteous little angel. At this moment, while the reporter was complaining tearfully, Jing Taijun appeared with his family of 5. Looking at Jing Yunzhao, they suddenly knelt down together. Xiao Yun, Mom was wrong. Come home with Mom, okay? Wang Xianfang cried at the top of her lungs. Chapter 277. In the family of 5, Jing Taijun and Wang Xianfang were kneeling in front, while the 3 little ones were kneeling behind them. Jing Xiu's body was trembling, her eyes were red. Seeing so many people, she was clearly very scared. She bit her lips, and her hand was tightly held by Jing Ling. Jing Mingkai was somewhat indignant. He had never knelt since he was young, but this time, he was kneeling to a big sister that he didn't like. Wang Xianfang's face was filled with suffering, and Jing Taijun looked even more pitiful than her. An unyielding big man, the moment he knelt, his face was filled with humiliation and helplessness, making the people around him cry. Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu were also shocked, but in the next second, they glared angrily. Xiao Haiqing subconsciously wanted to speak, but after thinking carefully, she took back her words. Let them kneel. That's how it should be. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. Xiao Yun, if you like to go to school, then even if we have to sell everything, we will still support you. Before, Mom only said those words in a moment of anger, don't take it to heart. Wang Xianfang wiped her tears and continued, "Child, no matter what you did wrong, you are still a member of our family. It's all our fault. If we found you earlier, then maybe you wouldn't have suffered so much." Jing Yunzhao stood in front of them, looked at them, and chuckled. "Jing Yunzhao, are you still human? How can you still laugh now? These are your parents." In the crowd, someone angrily shouted. The others also had angry expressions, calming down from their previous emotions. Even if Jing Yunzhao's childhood was very difficult, this was not a reason for her to not recognize her parents. Moreover, this pair of parents were very kind, and they had such a sensible little brother and sister. What was there to blame? Jing Yunzhao acted as if he didn't hear it, only lowering his head and asking, "Today, these people, were you the ones who found them? Don't blame mom and dad. It was me. I was the one who posted it online." Jing Ling enthusiastically shouted. Jing Yunzhao nodded. No wonder. No wonder so many people appeared overnight. Jing Ling was just a 12-year-old girl. Even if she knew how to post, she probably did not have the ability to make such a big fuss. Perhaps the He family had also intervened to help her. It was very easy to find a water army online. After making such a big fuss, it attracted so many reporters and was also in the process of cleaning it up. Then you all agree that Jing Ling did those things? Jing Yunzhao asked again. Wang Xianfang said pitifully, "Child, we had no choice. I really didn't know what to do, so when I heard about the post from Lingling, I thought that everyone would help me persuade you, but I didn't expect it to blow up so big. Let's go back, everyone. Don't interview our family Xiao Yun. She's a good child. She's only like this because she's been separated from us for too long." In the next second, Wang Xianfang cried out to everyone. Such a protective attitude made everyone even angrier. "Jing Yunzhao, don't you feel ashamed? Your mother is kneeling on the ground at this moment, still thinking of you at all times, but you don't know what's good for you. You're simply unworthy of being a human." The enthusiastic netizens roared, then continued, "I think we should let her reflect on herself today and let her know how important the word filial piety is." That's right. Jing Yunzhao, why aren't you kneeling down and apologizing to your parents? Kneel down. Kneel down. Suddenly, there was a loud and oppressive shout. It was unknown who threw a small stone over, but it went straight for Jing Yunzhao's forehead. Chapter 278. Jing Yunzhao saw the stone flying towards him, but he did not dodge it. The stone hit his forehead and blood flowed out instantly. Bloody shocked everyone. The person who did it panicked as well. He turned around and hid in the crowd, putting on an act. "Yunzhao, why didn't you dodge?" Xiao Haiqing was shocked. But in the next moment, she suddenly understood her intentions. The injury wasn't heavy, but it was in the most obvious position, so it looked a bit shocking. The Jing family could use the trick of injuring themselves to gain the enemy's confidence, so could Jing Yunzhao. If she was injured now, then it wouldn't be long before these people would know how stupid they were. When the time comes, public opinion would stand on Jing Yunzhao's side, causing the Jing family's imposters to have no place to stand. However, her Yunzhao was too pitiful. He did not do anything wrong, but he had to be attacked and trampled on by these people. Jing Yunzhao raised his hand and wiped the blood off his forehead. He took out a wet tissue and wiped his hand. "Kneeling to the heavens, kneeling to the earth, and kneeling to my parents, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I kneel to these irrelevant people?" Jing Yunzhao's figure was still cold and arrogant, her voice powerful and resonating. "Jing Yunzhao, aren't they your parents?" The reporter shook his head inwardly. This Jing Yunzhao couldn't be muddle-headed, right? Jing Yunzhao suddenly smiled. Her face that was stained with blood looked extremely sorrowful, causing people who saw it to tremble in fear. That gaze seemed to have the ability to penetrate, tugging at people's heartstrings. Unable to withstand a single blow, her voice softly attacked, "How could they be my parents? Look at them. How do they look like me? I haven't seen them for more than 10 years. How can they be my parents? They forced me to this point and made me kneel in front of so many people. Is this what parents would do? I am a child without parents, but I don't lack love. If anyone can claim to be my parents, then do I have to call them father and mother every time I see them? I'll be busy." Jing Yunzhao scoffed. "Xiao Yun. We are your parents. Have you forgotten? We went to do a paternity test. You've seen it before. The results." Wang Xinfang hurriedly took out the paternity test portfolio from her bosom. Obviously, she had prepared it beforehand. Immediately, the test results were displayed in front of the camera, and there was a stamp from the hospital. Jing Yunzhao's name was written on it, and the final result was even clearer. The reporter was filled with disdain. Jing Yunzhao still refused to admit it. He had never seen such a thick-skinned girl. However, when he thought of his parents who were still kneeling beside him, the reporter kindly helped her up. "Auntie Wang, Uncle Jing, we all know that you are the victims. You must be heartbroken that your daughter has become like this, right?" the reporter asked through the microphone. Wang Xianfang was a little nervous, but when she thought of the huge sum of money that would be transferred to her account, she calmed down and said, "That's for sure. My wife and I haven't been able to eat or sleep these days. Sometimes, we think that if only I didn't recognize him on the street. I think you must love your daughter very much to be able to recognize her at a glance." The reporter continued. Yes. Although I haven't seen her for more than 10 years, she looks very similar to when she was young. I couldn't stop crying when I saw her, so I boldly went forward to acknowledge her. But if I knew this would happen, I shouldn't have. Wang Xianfang sighed. "Auntie Wang, don't say that. It's natural for parents to find their children. Also, we saw the post mention that your daughter was lost by your mother-in-law. She was just born not long ago. You must have been heartbroken back then. It hasn't been easy for you all these years," the reporter said warmly. Chapter 279. A mother's selfless love was great. Unfortunately, Wang Xianfang had insulted the word mother's love. Her love was all for her son, Jing Mingkai. The reporter saw that this family was so honest and asked a few more questions. When Wang Xianfang was almost done crying, the reporter turned to look at the 3 children. "Little brother, do you like your sister?" the reporter asked kindly. Jing Mingkai was a little devil, but he had never seen such a big scene. He was a little nervous and subconsciously said, "I don't like her." The reporter was stunned, but he was also quite emotional. "Little brother, your heart was also broken by this big sister, right? A child's performance can't be fake. It can be seen how much Jing Yunzhao hates the Jing family. 2 little girls, do you think Jing Yunzhao's actions are right? What words do you have to say to your sister?" the reporter asked again. Jing Ling's eyes were shining. "I hope she can go home and take care of her brother and parents. Don't be stubborn and get along well with us. My things can be used by her." Of course, Jing Yunzhao's things had to be hers. The reporter was very satisfied and turned to Jing Xiu. Jing Xiu's body suddenly tensed up. Her eyes wandered and her mind was in a mess. "She's not." Jing Xiu was a little scared and stuttered. Especially when she saw the blood on Jing Yunzhao's forehead, she felt even more guilty. If only she had told Jing Yunzhao earlier. If only she could have stopped her parents. She's not my sister. My sister is already dead. Jing Xiu cried and told the truth. Wang Xianfang and Jing Taijun heard this and their faces changed. What nonsense are you talking about? Jing Xiu immediately retracted her head in fear. The reporter sighed. It seems that the second sister of the Jing family is even more resistant to Jing Yunzhao. In her heart, this big sister's actions have already made her completely unable to accept. He didn't understand Jing Xiu's meaning at all. Jing Yunzhao, what else do you have to say now? Because of your willful actions, your parents are sad all day. Your siblings are discouraged and don't want to acknowledge your existence. They are still children. Mr. Reporter, you have a warm heart. Jing Yunzhao sneered. The reporter was baffled, but felt deeply honored. Jing Yunzhao, if you still have a little bit of humanity left, then apologize to your parents and admit your mistakes in front of everyone. Promise to be filial to your parents and treat your sister-in-law well in the future. Everyone's faces were filled with anger and anticipation. Jing Yunzhao was still a minor, still a child. Compared to pursuing responsibility and blindly condemning, if she could admit her mistake, then that would naturally be for the best. However, this incident also made them think deeply. Should education only focus on results? If everyone was like Jing Yunzhao, who would take care of the elderly in the future? Who will take care of the child? You have a good heart, but you are stupid, Jing Yunzhao added. Without waiting for the reporter's reaction, Jing Yunzhao took out the report she had prepared for him. Because of this report, you say that they are my parents. Then what about mine? Jing Yunzhao opened his report and stared at Jing Taijun and his wife. He said coldly, the report excludes the biological parents. Jing Taijun, can you please tell me why? Jing Taijun and Wang Xianfang's reports were the same. However, Jing Yunzhao's report was different. It was obvious that it belonged to two completely different people. Jing Taijun trembled. You went to do a new report. No. This one is fake. Wang Xianfang reacted very quickly and immediately roared. Chapter 280. Wang Xianfang also turned pale with fright. She had no idea when Jing Yunzhao had taken their things for appraisal, but no matter what, she couldn't admit that the things in her hands were real. This one is fake. I have two more here. Jing Yunzhao took out two more. These three appraisal reports were personally stamped by the three most authoritative organizations in the capital. There is absolutely no room for doubt. As for the one in your hands, you know very well what it is. You keep saying that you are my biological parents, but from the moment I met you, you have never done what parents should do. On the first day I entered the school, you tried to force me to drop out. I refused, and you even stopped me from leaving. Wang Xianfang, there is no such unreasonable parents in this world. You are a fake, and you are kneeling in front of me, begging for forgiveness, and asking me to go home with you. I am not stupid. Didn't they want to hear the big news? Then she would reveal the big news. I violently beat up the villagers, but that was because these people surrounded me with iron weapons. If my friend and I didn't fight back, then we would all be injured, so I didn't do anything wrong. I used Jing Mingkai to threaten Wang Xianfang, but that was because they always appeared in school, trying to kick me out of school, so I still didn't do anything wrong. They pretended to be my parents, used a fake report to threaten me, and bullied me. Now, even if I make her kneel for a day, kneel for a year, I still didn't do anything wrong. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, he suddenly stepped forward, pressed down with his hands, and hooked his leg. Suddenly, with a dong sound, the husband and wife's knees directly hit the ground. The ground in front of the school was flat and clean, without a speck of dust. They made such a big movement, but not even a speck of dust was stirred up. Wang Xinfang had willingly knelt before, and she had deliberately controlled her strength, so she didn't feel any pain in her knees. But now, Jing Yunzhao used a lot of strength. With such a hard ground and bones colliding, she only felt that her knees were about to split open. The sudden change caught everyone off guard. Xiao Haiqing simply wanted to clap her hands and cheer. The first female reporter who asked the question was already feeling a little embarrassed towards Jing Yunzhao because of the Chao family's matter. Now that she saw that Jing Yunzhao's biological parents were fake, she simply wanted to crawl into a crack in the ground. The second reporter, on the other hand, was in a state of confusion. Was the previous paternity report fake? It can't be. However, he had also taken a look at the 3 reports that Jing Yunzhao had taken out. They were indeed the names of the 3 most authoritative paternity testing centers in Jingdu. They were professional organizations that could not be faked even with money. They were 100% trustworthy. Although the hospital in Serene City was big, it was only a hospital after all. They might not be proficient in biotechnology like a paternity test. For a moment, the male reporter didn't know what to say. The female reporter suddenly felt lucky that she was the first to ask. Although she had lost face because of the Chao family, it was still better than being a fake parent. The most important thing was that this male reporter who came after her not only questioned Jing Yunzhao, he even displayed the spirit of bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind, praising the parents and their child in detail. The feeling in her heart right now, there was no need to think about it. The others were also dumbfounded. The scene suddenly became very quiet. Although they were reporters, this time, they had indeed come with the intention of denouncing Jing Yunzhao. They had already thought of the questions, but now that such a situation had suddenly occurred, no matter who it was, they needed to calm down. Chapter 281. Many of the reporters here came from Ning City. Before they came, their superiors had more or less given them a reminder. The general idea was to dig up Jing Yunzhao thoroughly, as if she had offended someone. Actually, they were curious. Jing Yunzhao was just a country bumpkin. How could she have caused such a huge commotion? However, even though they felt it was strange before, since Jing Yunzhao was so vile, they also felt that it was reasonable. But now, it was different. This pair of parents who were so lively were actually fake. The DNA test had the doctor's signature and the hospital's seal. How could there be a mistake? These reporters weren't stupid. What they wanted was big news. Now that the scene had already been broadcasted live on the internet, if they were to harshly criticize Jing Yunzhao now or run away in a sorry state, they would definitely be scolded to death by the netizens. The only way to get rid of this negative influence was, Auntie Wang, are you really not Jing Yunzhao's mother? Did you make up everything you said just now? In an instant, the wind changed. The netizens who came to support her were confused. Wasn't it Jing Yunzhao's fault? Why did it suddenly change? No. I really am her biological mother. Wang Xinfang said hurriedly. The reporters suddenly remembered that the eldest daughter of the Jing family had said something weird when they were asking questions. Did she know the truth? Suddenly, they turned to look at Jing Xiao. Little girl, is Jing Yunzhao really your sister? Jing Xiao panicked and shook her head. Wang Xinfang looked and grabbed her shoulders. Her eyes were fierce. Jing Xiao. Jing Yunzhao is your eldest sister, she's our family's long-lost eldest daughter. If you don't know, don't talk nonsense, okay? Some of them gritted their teeth and tried to coerce her. If Jing Xiao said something wrong, they wouldn't be able to refute. In an instant, all the cameras were pointed at Jing Xiao's tender face. Is this all you reporters can do? You forced me at first, and now you're forcing Jing Xiao. Are your verbal attacks not enough? How many times do you want to throw stones? Jing Yunzhao's cold voice drifted over. She would not let the Jing family off, except for Jing Xiu. This little girl reminded her of herself in her previous life. She was a little confused and scared, weak on the outside but stubborn on the inside. Jing Xiu raised her head and bit her lip. It was not that she did not want to say it, but no matter how wrong her parents were, they were still her parents. After all, Jing Yunzhao was not her biological child. No matter what she did, her family could not do anything to her in the future. But she was different. Blood ties could not be changed. Jing Xiu had made up her mind not to say anything. After being scolded by Jing Yunzhao, the reporters were also embarrassed, but they still had to give the netizens an explanation. Moreover, the netizens who had come to cheer him on were now in a mess. What's going on? Why was she suddenly not his biological daughter? Then this family is a swindler. I even gave them 1,000 yuan. This has nothing to do with money now. The most important thing is to find out who is telling the truth and who is lying. There were whispers at the side, but some people had already rushed up to Wang Xinfang to clarify the situation. The reporters were pushed to the side and had no choice but to ask the villagers. Jing Yunzhao looked on coldly. Her aura made people not dare to approach her. The red blood on her forehead was especially clear under the morning sun and moved people's hearts. Chapter 282. The villagers came to show the injuries on their bodies to prove how disobedient and unfilial Jing Yunzhao was. But they didn't expect things to get out of hand and the reporters would turn against them. It was a mess. Jing Taijun is your good neighbor, right? Did they really lose a daughter? One of the reporters asked. Yes, she was lost by Granny Jing. Did Wang Xinfang search for her? Did Granny Jing say where she went? The reporter continued to ask. However, upon hearing this, the man's face stiffened as he thought of some strange things. Every family in their village hoped to have a boy to take care of them in their old age, so girls didn't seem to be so precious. After giving birth to a lot of girls, some of them were eventually given away to others, and some people secretly lost their children. But usually, only the older generation would throw their children away. The mother of the child was pregnant for 10 months, so she definitely wouldn't be able to accept it. But at that time, Wang Xinfang didn't seem to have much of a reaction. I think we searched for a day. The man recalled. After saying that, he was stunned. Indeed, they searched for a day, but on the second day, there was no news. It was as if the child didn't exist, a day. The reporter was also stunned. The other reporters at the side smelled a conspiracy. One of the villagers said that he heard from the older generation close to Granny Jing that the child was thrown up the mountain and was probably dead. Once these words were said, everyone was dumbfounded. If the child of the Jing family was dead, then why did they come out to acknowledge the family? This wasn't as simple as acknowledging the wrong person, right? But that villager just said it carelessly and didn't have any evidence. As for the specifics, everyone could only imagine. Actually, most of these villagers were simple and honest. They truly believed that Jing Yunzhao was Jing Taijun's daughter, so they felt that it was natural for her to listen to her parents' words and help the Jing family to create a ruckus. However, now that everyone was saying that she wasn't, these people started to think about it after putting aside their relationship with the Jing family. They felt that it wasn't likely. Once they found out that they were lied to, it would be strange if the villagers didn't get angry. Wang Xinfang. What are you thinking? Is this girl really your family's daughter? Don't lie to us to harm others. We don't want to do such immoral things. That's right. You said that there was a paternity test, so we believed you. We only helped you because we've been neighbors for decades. Didn't you promise to give each of us 100 yuan if we came? Now that things have turned out this way, you won't refuse to give me the money, right? Wang Xinfang felt like vomiting blood when she heard the endless criticism. Weren't these people helping her before? But now, they're actually siding with outsiders. I've wasted so many years getting along with them. Wang Xinfang, I just need to find a lawyer and use the report in your hands to make that hospital apologize to me obediently and compensate me. The doctor who helped you fake the report won't be able to escape. Guess what that doctor will say when the time comes? There were some people he didn't dare to offend, but he would definitely be exposed. At that time, he would be accused of fraud. Neither of you will be able to escape. At that time, your son. Before Jing Yunzhao could finish, Wang Xinfang immediately held Jing Mingkai in her arms. Don't you dare touch my son. I'll talk. Wang Xinfang glared at Jing Yunzhao as if she had a deep grudge against her. Chapter 283. Jing Yunzhao relaxed as soon as Wang Xinfang relented. She was just bluffing. Regardless of whether she said it or not, she would still be charged. As long as she opened her mouth, it would be a fact. She couldn't change it even if she wanted to. This matter was so big that it would be more lively on the internet than in reality. Even if she didn't sue Wang Xinfang and Jing Taijun, the prosecutor's office would prosecute them. As the victim, she couldn't even withdraw the lawsuit. The two couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Although this family was pitiful, who wasn't pitiful? If they could frame others just because they were pitiful, the world would have been in chaos. Wang Xinfang hugged Jing Mingkai tightly and gritted her teeth. It's fake. The test report in my hand is fake. A rich lady I didn't know came to me and asked me to pretend to be your parents. This test was actually done using my Xiaoer's blood sample. She gave me a photo of you and sent someone to follow you. After finding you, she asked me to come forward and acknowledge you. She even gave me 30,000 yuan and said that she would give me more after the matter was settled. Jing Yunzhao, is this enough? I didn't start this matter. You offended her. Wang Xinfang said angrily. She wouldn't change. Jing Yunzhao looked at the trembling Jing Xiao and asked, You used Jing Xiao's blood sample? Does she know? Wang Xinfang was as stupid as a pig. How would others look at Jing Xiao if she exposed Jing Xiao in front of so many people? They would definitely think that she was the same as this bastard mother. Jing Xiao would always be labeled as an accomplice in deceiving others. If she didn't speak nonsense, others would still think that Jing Xiao was a child who didn't know what her parents wanted to do. But when it came to the test, it was different. If it was Jing Mingkai, Wang Xinfang would definitely think more. But she didn't think much about Jing Xiao. She didn't know. I heard that they needed a blood sample, so I went to the clinic to borrow a syringe. I learned from the nurse and drew a can. When she said this, the onlookers looked at Jing Xiao with sympathy. This was her biological mother. How could she treat her biological daughter like this? Only now did Jing Xiao remember that her parents had drawn blood for her. Her face instantly turned pale. What did they say at that time? She said that she had been working hard since she was a child, and in less than a year, she was going to have her middle school exams. She wanted to draw some blood to check her body condition so that she could nourish her body according to the doctor's advice. Actually, at that time, she also felt strange. Her parents never cared much about her, but after all, they had said so. She was also a little excited, so she agreed without hesitation. Now that she thought about it, it was no wonder that her parents' expressions were so ugly when she asked her younger brother to check it out. It turned out that they couldn't bear to part with him. She was not good with words since she was young. She was not like Jingling, who knew how to please her parents. She also could not become a boy, so she could only accept her fate and be a good girl. Although many of her classmates in school looked down on her, she still tried her best to please her classmates and parents. It was all fake, all of it. Her parents had used her to deceive others. Even if she didn't know about it, she had been deceived. What was the difference between her and an accomplice? She suddenly felt disgusted. Wang Xinfang's attitude and every word she said was like a hammer, hitting everyone until they couldn't breathe. The villagers were still okay. They already knew that the Jing family didn't love their daughter, so they didn't feel surprised. But these reporters and enthusiastic netizens felt like they had swallowed a bunch of dead flies. They thought that they were upholding justice, but it turned out that they were accomplices to a villain. Chapter 284. There were so many reporters here, and most of them were here to attack Jing Yunzhao. They wanted a bright future, and since their boss mentioned that he wanted Jing Yunzhao, this girl, to receive retribution, then they would do their best to fulfill their duties. But now, Jing Yunzhao's retribution had yet to be seen. Instead, it was them, the ones who were targeting Jing Yunzhao, who would be busy for a while. Looking at the wound on her forehead, the more they looked at it, the more distressed they felt. The netizens who came to support her felt extremely guilty at this time. She had abused a little girl who had been wronged since she was young, and in front of so many adults. They would be scolded to death, wouldn't they? Those who were involved in this matter would be attacked by netizens one after another, wouldn't they? They had a feeling that life would not be too good for a while. At this moment, the people who reacted quickly had already started to ask Wang Xinfang who the rich lady was. Unfortunately, although Wang Xinfang knew that the other party called herself Mrs. He, she did not know her name. No matter how these people asked, they would not be able to get an answer. As for the reporters, they couldn't help but be careful. As small reporters, they couldn't come into contact with too many high-level things, but they also knew that some families couldn't be provoked. Otherwise, their small companies would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. Even if there were a few reporters who knew who the attacker was, they did not say a word and remained silent. Everyone tacitly did not ask Jing Yunzhao more. On one hand, they were ashamed, and on the other hand, they felt that it was blasphemous. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao stood there with a strong aura. There was a bit of contempt in her eyes, which made everyone feel that they could not raise their heads, as if they were a joke. Jing Yunzhao's appearance and attitude made people feel an indescribable heartache and admiration. Her expression was clean, as usual. Under the sun, her eyes seemed to shine with a bright light. She was fascinated but unfathomable. They could not believe that they had treated such a calm and indifferent girl as a morally corrupt person. The school teachers present breathed a sigh of relief. The reporters did not dare to get close to Jing Yunzhao, but they chatted with her for a while. It was rare that they were not as confrontational as before, and they did not dare to pick on her. However, these questions were mostly about Jing Yunzhao's situation in school. Without a doubt, the teachers' answers made the reporters who asked the questions secretly click their tongues. In the past year, no matter which subject he was in, he had never fallen from the first place. He had participated in several competitions and gained fame for the school. Jing Yunzhao's reputation had improved a lot. Although there were still some people who didn't like her due to Qiao Hongye's influence, they didn't view her as an enemy. Now that they saw so many people besieging her, they couldn't help but feel some sympathy and righteous indignation. Therefore, when the reporters asked questions, some of them worshipped Jing Yunzhao fiercely, some of them used all kinds of things to prove that although she was cold and aloof, she would never bully her classmates, and the rest disdained to flatter Jing Yunzhao, but they also spoke the truth. Instead, it was more realistic. Compared to Jing Yunzhao, the Qiao family and Jing family's people were like eggplants that had been hit by frost, completely wilting. Only then did the two families truly understand what it meant to lose reputation. The injury on Jing Yunzhao's forehead magnified the effect of their actions. At this moment, facing the anger of the crowd, Jing Yunzhao could imagine what their future days would be like. Chapter 285. The scene that was originally a big fuss had turned into a joke. When Jing Yunzhao stepped into the school grounds, everyone relaxed and had the intention of escaping in a sorry state. It's finally over. Yunzhao, it's really dangerous this time. Fortunately, Li Xiao sent the identification report to you in advance. Otherwise, we can't explain it clearly even if we have 10 mouths. Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu stayed with Jing Yunzhao in the infirmary and cleaned her wound. Su Chu nodded and agreed. These people were really terrifying. Especially when they came with the mentality of upholding justice, as if all the resistance of others was a great sin and unpardonable evil. If it wasn't for the fact that they had the most favorable evidence, then wouldn't they have been swallowed alive by them? Moreover, if there was no identification report, they would also list the parent-child relationship as a fact. If Jing Yunzhao cooperated and admitted her mistake, those people would criticize her severely and ask her to show her sincerity. They would even observe her actions for a long time in the future. If she didn't cooperate, they would not let her go. It was bound to be a hot speculation, and she would become everyone's target. In short, no matter what she did, in the eyes of those righteous people, it was wrong. Even if they later added in the real test report, no one would believe it. Even if the heat of this matter had already passed, with the gossip at the beginning satisfying their inner sense of justice, the truth at the end might not be so important anymore. It also meant that Jing Yunzhao would be misunderstood by the world for a lifetime. Cousin, you must thank that Li Xiao well. He has helped a lot. Su Chu was grateful. After that, looking at Jing Yunzhao's wound, she curled her lips. Cousin, why don't you hide? This scar will stay on your face for a long time. In addition to the wound on her cousin's face, there was no flaw at all, and her skin was getting better and better. The person who did it behind her back was simply vicious. Jing Yunzhao raised her eyes and smiled at Xiao Haiqing. It's clear that Yunzhao's forehead is not injured in vain. Xiao Haiqing's movements became softer and softer. Everyone would remember the pain and humiliation she suffered at that moment. The color of blood would always be the best thing to reinforce other people's memories. Moreover, there were so many cameras, so many reporters, and even some parents on the periphery recording the whole process with their mobile phones. They didn't even need to investigate who did it. Someone would naturally find out. You think it's over, right? Xiao Haiqing asked Su Chu with a smile. Su Chu was confused. That's right. The reporters ran away with their tails between their legs. Some of the so-called enthusiastic netizens also left. Only a few people surrounded the Jing family and asked them for the money they had donated. It had nothing to do with them anymore. Su Chu liked to think about things on the surface, but she was not stupid. After being reminded by Xiao Haiqing, her eyes lit up instantly. It's not that it hasn't ended, it's just the beginning. Su Chu revealed a soft and cute smile as she chuckled. Yes, it's just the beginning. Jing Yunzhao's mouth was slightly hooked. Her eyes were cold, but they disappeared in a flash. The three girls knew each other's intentions and didn't say much. Gan Jinchen, Tang Zihua and Qi Daong also came to see the situation of Jing Yunzhao. They found that although her wound bled a lot at the time, it was not particularly serious. She would be fine after a period of rest. When those reporters besieged, the three boys who had a good relationship with Jing Yunzhao naturally wanted to protect her, but who dared? Everyone knew that the appearance of a male classmate at that time would not help Jing Yunzhao, but a greater slander, so they could only watch from a distance. Chapter 286. The three of them couldn't help but feel that time passed extremely slowly today. When they saw Jing Yunzhao being criticized, they couldn't wait to push away those reporters and uphold justice for her. But the truth was that the play of a hero saving a damsel in distress couldn't be used in reality. At this time, Tang Zihua already had some faint suspicions in his heart. The Mrs. He that Wang Xinfang mentioned in front of everyone was most likely He Jiaxi's mother. He couldn't be more familiar with the He family. The He family had a lot of businesses and was involved in many fields, but unfortunately, they weren't proficient in any of them. So even though the He family was still considered rich and powerful, they weren't ranked among the upper class in Ning City. But because of their relationship with the Tang family, people gave them some face everywhere. The current head of the He family was called He Jili. His wife's name was Han Qin. Han Qin only gave birth to one daughter, He Jiaxi. Although it wasn't a big deal that He Jiaxi was sent abroad, her reputation was ruined. It would be difficult for her to find a suitable match in the future, unless it involved interests. He Jili's businesses were all inherited from old Master He. Because of this, although He Jili was now middle-aged, he was still a bit of a hedonist in his bones, which caused the He family to become worse and worse. He had even found a few women outside, and he didn't lack illegitimate children. So after He Jiaxi's value decreased, He Jili presumably didn't like his wife, Han Qin. Han Qin's anger naturally vented on Jing Yunzhao. As for whether or not He Jiaxi was behind all of this, he was well aware of it. This matter had become so big that it was necessary for him to inform his grandfather about it. His current illness was actually more or less healed. Logically speaking, he didn't need to continue staying in Huaning County, but the environment here allowed him to relax, so he kept staying here and refused to leave. Jing Yunzhao could be considered his savior, and his grandfather was also very concerned about her. He just didn't know if his grandfather would take his anger out on the He family because of her. After all, the He family and the Tang family were true friends. Yunzhao, I'm sorry. This matter might be because of me. Tang Zihua apologized. Jing Yunzhao narrowed his eyes. Have you guessed which family it is? Among the people you've offended, other than the He family, there shouldn't be anyone who has the ability to put pressure on those reporters. Moreover, I've specifically looked at the posts on the internet. The reason why they're so popular is entirely because of the Water Army. There's a lot of them. Without connections and money, they wouldn't be able to do it. Tang Zihua was very honest. Jing Yunzhao smiled and looked up. It's the He family. So, I'll tell my grandfather, but I'm not sure how he'll deal with it. You know, the relationship between the He family and the Tang family has always been very good. Tang Zihua was also in a difficult position. But he did tell the truth. Although they were family friends, it was not a complete relationship. In fact, they were somewhat of the same branch. Many of the He family's businesses were funded by the Tang family. If the Tang family made a move, the He family would fall in the shortest time possible. However, the Tang family would also suffer some losses. It could be said that both sides would not end well. However, the Tang family was powerful. At most, they would lose some money. It was impossible for them to hurt their foundation. Therefore, Tang Zihua was even more uncertain. Businessmen prioritized profits. Although Jing Yunzhao was special, he did not know if she was special enough to make his grandfather treat her differently. He also knew that such an opinion was a little hurtful. After all, he was the origin of this matter. Logically speaking, the Tang family should seek justice for Jing Yunzhao. However, in reality, the possibility of that was not high. What Tang Zihua could guess, Jing Yunzhao also knew in her heart. She did not expect the Tang family to do anything at all. Even if she could not destroy the He family with her own hands now, she would be able to do it sooner or later. She did not necessarily need the Tang family to make a move. In fact, even if the Tang family made a move, they would definitely leave some leeway. However, the He family used the matter of her biological parents to bully her. No matter what, she could not tolerate it. She would not be satisfied if she did not turn the He family upside down. Chapter 287. It was only a matter of time. 3 years, at most 3 years, she would trample the He family under her feet. Seeing Jing Yunzhao's silence, Tang Xihua felt even more embarrassed. After a while, he heard her say, "I accepted your consultation fee. Since I'm treating you, it's only right that I take some risks. You don't have to take everything on yourself. I don't care how Grandfather Tang deals with it. You can tell him exactly what I said. I won't make things difficult for him now, but I also hope that when I deal with the He family in the future, he won't make things difficult for me." Tang Xihua was shocked. Jing Yunzhao's tone was a little arrogant, but he somehow felt that it was believable. "Okay, I can promise you that the Tang family won't interfere when the time comes," Tang Xihua immediately said. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Her attitude towards Tang Xihua was the same as before, which made Tang Xihua sigh in relief. However, after being stirred up by the He family, he felt a little lacking in confidence. Gan Jinchen and Jing Yunzhao had a common interest in medicine. Even Qi Daong, the class monitor, could discuss class matters with Jing Yunzhao, but he, on the other hand, always brought trouble to Jing Yunzhao. This feeling was a little embarrassing. He was a descendant of the Tang family. In Ning City, as long as his friends were involved with him, not only would they not cause trouble, but they would also bring a lot of convenience. However, in Huaning County, the Crown Prince's halo was gone. The psychological gap was too big. After Tang Xihua finished making his promise to Jing Yunzhao, he left the school and called his biological grandfather, Tang Lin, when he returned home. The old man usually cared about financial news. How could he pay attention to these social issues? Now that Tang Xihua mentioned it, he knew that Jing Yunzhao had suffered a lot in the morning. He even went online to search. Sure enough, it was easy to find the post that Tang Xihua mentioned. Currently, there were people who had recorded the whole thing that happened in the morning and posted it. The old man looked through it with a serious face. When he reached the end, he was a little worried. Especially when he saw the wound on Jing Yunzhao's forehead, he couldn't help but feel his heart ache. He even specially opened up the comments from other people at the beginning and found that those words could be said to be vicious, scolding Jing Yunzhao to the point that she was drenched in dog blood. One could imagine how tense the situation was at that time. "You brat, did she really say that?" Elder Tang asked angrily over the phone. "That's right, grandfather, you don't have to pretend anymore. If our family makes a move against the He family now, outsiders won't be able to figure out your intentions. Who knows how chaotic it will be." Tang Xihua also hit the nail on the head. Benefits were the opposite, and there was also trouble. Between the two clans, how could they kick each other aside just like that? If that was the case, wouldn't other companies be scared to death when they worked with the Tang family? "You brat." Elder Tang's mouth twitched, but he was momentarily speechless. "You didn't have to be so direct, did you? If that's the case, that girl will most likely be on guard against our family as well. Could it be that his grandson was a blockhead?" The fact that he agreed to let the eldest grandson of the Tang family go to school in Huaning County when his illness was almost cured, wasn't the meaning behind it obvious enough? Compared to that girl from the He family, he liked Jing Yunzhao more. Self-reliant and independent, neither servile nor overbearing. Their Tang family didn't need a commercial marriage at all. Although it was best for families of equal social status, if there were other choices, they didn't have to consider social status. Whether it was appearance or temperament, Jing Yunzhao was the perfect granddaughter-in-law in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that Zihua and Jing Yunzhao were still too young, he would have said this clearly. Chapter 288. Grandfather Tang faintly sighed. He felt that half of his granddaughter-in-law had flown away, so he only said, "We can't touch the He family for the time being. Since that girl Yunzhao has the courage to do it herself, that's good." It was impossible to withdraw all of his financial support all of a sudden, so he had to take it slow. The He family wasn't the same as it was decades ago. He couldn't tolerate it again and again just because they were old friends. Previously, that girl He Jiaxi jumped around in front of Jing Yunzhao. Fortunately, Jing Yunzhao didn't care about it, otherwise, his grandson's illness might not have been cured. It wasn't good for him to suddenly deal with the He family, but he could still give them a warning. No matter how big the business interests in the world were, it couldn't be compared to his grandson's life. He owed Jing Yunzhao, but he didn't owe the He family anything. Grandfather Tang watched the video a few times, but Li Xiaoyun in the capital had already exploded. So many people were pointing at Jing Yunzhao's nose and cursing, but he actually threw a stone at her. Li Xiaoyun immediately asked someone to take a screenshot of Jing Yunzhao's injury and magnify it. He looked at it carefully a few times and even asked a doctor to ask about it. When the doctor confirmed that it was only a superficial wound and wouldn't leave a scar, Li Xiaoyun's complexion became better. Ning City's He family, to me, it's just a matter of moving my mouth. He called Jing Yunzhao and said heroically, "Young Master Li, I want to do it myself. How can I rely on you?" Jing Yunzhao said gratefully. Li Xiaoyun had helped her enough this time. If it weren't for the paternity test report, how could she explain it clearly? Li Xiaoyun was stunned, but he also guessed that if the other party used the matter of her biological parents to torment her, the knot in her heart would definitely not be resolved in a short period of time. If he helped to deal with the He family, then even if the He family fell in a big way, it would just be an understatement to them. It would also cause her to have nowhere to vent her anger, which would be counterproductive. It was best for her to remember this debt now and get back at them one by one in the future. Moreover, with her ability, it wouldn't take too long. All right then, do as you see fit. If there's anything, feel free to look for me. Li Xiaoyun had a good temper. Jing Yunzhao replied with an "n" and continued, "I understand." "Thank you, young Master Li." When Li Xiaoyun heard this, he raised his eyebrows and restrained himself a little. "Pay attention to your injuries and don't let them come into contact with water. Although it's not serious, you should pay attention to your diet. If it's inflammation, go see a doctor immediately." Li Xiaoyun was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly remembered that Jing Yunzhao herself was a doctor. He paused for a moment before continuing, "Anyway, you're not allowed to treat your body as a joke next time. If you can avoid it, try your best to avoid it, Jing Yunzhao." That. Especially when they first met. Unbeknownst to her, the people standing beside Li Xiaoyun were dumbfounded. A few of them swallowed their saliva in shock, thinking that they had seen a ghost. After Li Xiaoyun hung up the phone, he obviously realized that he was acting strangely, but the next second, he confirmed his thoughts. His face was calm, as if this reaction was natural. Li Xiaoyun was paying attention to the situation on the internet, and the others were no exception. This post was pushed to all the major forums and websites, and the Internet Water Army made a big fuss about it. Now that it was completely popular, the momentum didn't stop. Chapter 289. Previously, all the posts were scolding Jing Yunzhao, but now, they were attacking the Jing and Qiao families. They could not wait to offer everyone a basin of black dog's blood so that the two families would reveal their true forms. Some people even exposed the addresses of the two families. Some people even called the two families 24 hours a day to harass them. At night, Jing Yunzhao received several calls from Pak Yuan, Xiang Jin, and Du Lin. She went online and refreshed the forum to watch the fight. I've never seen such shameless people. They even impersonated their parents. Shameless. Scum. +1. See that banner? How dare they say that others are immoral and despise the poor and favor the rich. I wish I could pretend to be their ancestor and jump out of the coffin and beat them to death. The children of the two weirdos in the Jing family are nothing. That little boy is obviously spoiled. I hate him for valuing boys over girls. Also, the Jing family is not good. The Qiao family is even weirder. Since they don't treat their child well, why did they adopt her? Hypocrites, you're all scolding her. Am I the only one who likes Jing Yunzhao? Upstairs, upstairs. I've found a soulmate. Jing Yunzhao is so beautiful. Her skin is good, her figure is good, and her grades are good. She's like a goddess in school. Her aura is just like a queen's. When she was talking, I forgot to look at others. It's just a pity that her face was disfigured. I wish I could beat the bastard who hit her 1,000,000 times. This is the guy who hit her. Everyone, come and beat him up. A photo was attached. Some people continued to scold her in new posts, but some posts became more and more crooked. Jing Yunzhao patiently read them line by line. She couldn't explain her feelings. They didn't know her, but they could scold her and make her into a goddess. After a few hours, Jing Yunzhao closed the webpage. She sighed and entered the dimension to practice martial arts. However, the battle outside was far more intense than what she had seen. Previously, when these people were attacking Jing Yunzhao, they had described her as a vicious and evil person. Now, it was proven that she was completely wronged. After the netizens felt that they had been deceived, some people apologized to Jing Yunzhao online, while others cursed and scolded her to vent their anger. However, the ones who had the greatest impact on the Jing and Qiao families were the people in real life. Qiao Weimin and Qiao Hongye's reputation wasn't too good to begin with. After the commotion on the internet, this matter spread throughout the town. The father and daughter duo didn't dare to go out at all. Qiao Hongye could have stayed with the Jiang family, but now that the Jiang family was in a bad mood because of the heartbreak poison incident, they didn't want to get into trouble at all, so they had Jiang Xia send her back. In the past, Jiang Xia really liked Qiao Hongye. However, after he got her, Qiao Hongye naturally changed from the white moonlight in his heart to the mosquito blood on the wall. In addition, she had previously humiliated Jiang Xia's pride in front of others, so this time, Jiang Xia only hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Qiao Hongye, who had returned home, simply couldn't move an inch. When she went out to buy groceries, many people simply ignored her and refused to sell to her. Needless to say, Qiao Weimin used to love drinking. He didn't have many friends, but there were still many who could drink and chat merrily with him. However, ever since this incident, everyone avoided Qiao Weimin. Even the neighbors didn't give the Qiao family a second glance. This situation continued for half a month until Qiao Hongye couldn't take it anymore. She got Qiao Weimin drunk and coaxed out the location where the money was hidden in the house. However, when Qiao Hongye ran away with a few thousand yuan, Qiao Weimin unexpectedly reacted and chased after her. However, he drank quite a lot. Not only did he not manage to catch up, he even fell into a deep ditch by the side of the road. He cried out for a few hours, but no one cared. Later, he fainted. The passers-by were afraid that he would die, so they sent him to the hospital. Chapter 290. Qiao Weimin didn't die from the fall, but he was crippled. When he woke up in the hospital, one of his legs had already been amputated. The medical fees were paid by his neighbors out of kindness, but even though they paid, no one took care of him in the hospital. Xiao Weimin was completely dumbfounded. He wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf in the hospital. Unfortunately, the doctors already knew what kind of person he was and prepared in advance. They even recorded Xiao Weimin's condition when he was admitted to the hospital. No matter how much trouble he caused, there was no effect at all. Ever since the Qiao family's reputation was ruined, Qiao Zizhou had always felt ashamed and didn't return home for half a month. Although Qiao Weimin was stingy with his daughter, he was generous with his son, so he didn't lack money. He simply rented a house outside the school and lived on his own. However, in the school, he naturally lost all face. He only hoped to pass the last 2 years of high school quickly and leave Huaning County, this damned place. Now that Qiao Weimin was crippled and had no children by his side, this man who didn't even know how to cook would occasionally go hungry. Even though he scolded Jing Yunzhao with his mouth, he could no longer go to the county to look for trouble like before. He could only drown his sorrows in alcohol every day. After a long time, his head was no longer as clear as before. He even went to the hospital a few times because of alcohol poisoning. No matter how miserable Qiao Weimin's life was, outsiders wouldn't sympathize with him at all. While Qiao Weimin's life wasn't easy, Jing Taijun and Wang Xianfang were even more miserable. The people in the village saw each other all the time. Usually, they needed help to survive, but now because of this family's concealment, they had offended almost everyone in the village. Not long after Wang Xianfang and her husband returned, they were prosecuted by the prosecutor's office for fraud. This matter was too big and had a bad influence. Naturally, someone had to come out to calm it down and restore a clean reputation. And that doctor was also found. With him as a witness, the couple's crime was even more unquestionable. Bribing the doctor to fake a paternity test to deceive Jing Yunzhao was one thing, but it was even more so for the public. Especially when the two of them used their relationship with Jing Yunzhao to gain sympathy. In one night, the total amount of donations added up to more than 100,000. As for that Mrs. He, because her identity was unknown, the case was left unsettled. The husband and wife were sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Since the 3 children of the Jing family were not orphans, they could only be temporarily taken care of by their relatives. But the Jing family's reputation was already tarnished. Although the relatives took away Jing Mingkai and Jing Ling for the sake of their many years of friendship, they naturally did not feel comfortable in their hearts. In the past, Jing Mingkai was like a little emperor at home. Now that his parents were no longer around and he was living under someone else's roof, he still maintained his original nature. Naturally, he had to suffer and suffer. Jing Ling could be considered smart, and her mouth was sweet. It was just that her cleverness was not enough in the eyes of outsiders. Now that she did not spend much money in junior high school, she could still endure it, but if she wanted to continue going to high school, it would be difficult. In the future, she would definitely be bitten to death by her relatives. Wang Xinfang's most important son was being raised by someone else. She hated it to death in prison. As for Jing Mingkai, although he suffered in other people's homes, he refused to return to the Jing family's old house. Other than Jing Xiuli, there was nothing else in the house. The Jing family didn't have many relatives, and even fewer were willing to take care of them. Moreover, compared to living under someone else's roof, Jing Xiu was more willing to live in her hometown. At least she didn't have to look at other people's faces. As for the work at home, she had long been used to it, so she could bear it. Although Jing Yunzhao was very disgusted with the Jing family, he still paid some attention to Jing Xiu. He continuously asked people to inquire about her situation. Chapter 291. Jing Xiu's living environment was different from Jing Mingkai's, so what she was experiencing was naturally different. Jing Mingkai was still a primary school student. Children didn't know much. Although some parents reminded their children not to get too close to him, life was still the same. It was just that he felt wronged. Every day, he would make a fuss at his relatives' place, causing them to be annoyed. Slowly, he began the process of being beaten up. However, Jing Xiu's classmates already had a clear sense of right and wrong. Moreover, children at this age were beginning to hate evil more than ordinary people. Therefore, Jing Xiu had no place in school. Her parents were in prison. Even if Jing Xiu was unbelievably obedient to others, she was still a bad person. When she went to school, her bag was secretly stuffed with worms. As soon as she left her seat, her books would be thrown everywhere. Every day, she was on the verge of collapse. When Jing Yunzhao received the news, he asked Du Lin to help and bring her out of Changshui village. She wanted to go personally, but now, when she walked on the streets of Huaning County, people would frequently turn their heads. If she went to Changshui village, she would simply be a rare gorilla waiting for people to surround her. Because her place was inconvenient, Jing Xiu was temporarily brought to the Du family. Jing Yunzhao directly rushed over at night. He saw that Jing Xiu was still wearing her school uniform, but the back was painted black with ink. Her hair was a little messy. When she saw Jing Yunzhao, her body trembled. She was a little scared, and her whole body was a lot thinner than before. If I were you. Du Lin shook his head. He definitely wouldn't care about Jing Xiu. It wasn't that he was cruel, but that he understood the difference. The Jing family treated her like this, and in turn, they took care of the Jing family's daughter. Wasn't that a little too kind? You're not me. Do you know what I think of when I see Jing Xiu? It's my past. Jing Yunzhao smiled. Her situation and life were almost exactly the same as in her past life. At that time, she really hoped that someone would help her, even if it was only temporary. If there was someone to guide her at that time, how could she be so weak and continue to be bullied by the Qiao family for so many years? The Jing family was the Jing family, and Jing Xiu was Jing Xiu. She was very clear about this. Jing Mingkai and Jing Ling were both scheming and impetuous people. Living with their relatives in the future, they definitely wouldn't have a good life. But even if their lives were ruined and they never had a chance to turn things around, she wouldn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for them. Needless to say, Jing Taijun and Wang Xinfang. Life in prison was not easy. 5 years later, their lives would definitely be worse than they were now. Their bodies would not even be as good as they were now. It was conceivable that their relatives and friends would not help them and their neighbors would not interact with them. Du Lin was rendered speechless by her words, but he understood what she meant. That was why he allowed her to chat with Jing Xiu alone. Jing Xiu, Jing Yunzhao called out. Jing Xiu raised her head, her voice trembling. Sister Yunzhao, I just wanted to ask you what you think about the future. Jing Yunzhao was very straightforward. Jing Xiu shook her head. Jing Yunzhao saw her reaction and didn't feel surprised. She laughed and said to herself, why don't I help you predict what kind of life you'll have in the future? You're not popular in school now. Everyone is targeting you. Your grades were originally very good, but during this period of time, you've always been absent-minded. You can't answer the teacher's questions, and this situation will snowball and become more and more serious. It may cause you to fail the middle school exams and get into an ordinary high school. When you get into high school, you think you can start afresh. But Huaning County is so close, everyone still doesn't like you. You still have no friends, no family. Chapter 292. Other than not having anyone to talk to, you also have to consider your own tuition and living expenses. But once you earn money for yourself to go to school, your younger siblings might come looking for you. They don't have a good life at their relative's house and need your help. What will you do? You feel that your younger siblings are very pitiful. You feel that as an older sister, you should bear the responsibility and quit school to support the family because your parents aren't around. You're still underage and the money you can earn is pitiful, but you have to give it all to others. But they won't be grateful to you because you're a girl and an older sister, so it's only right. Your parents might be released early, but nothing will change. Your younger brother will tell your parents that he's suffered a lot in the past few years, and your parents will blame you for not taking good care of your younger siblings and directly ignore your efforts over the years. The family's expenses are getting bigger and bigger, but your parents can't support the family. You have to continue being the pillar of the family. You might have to continue working hard for your younger brother for more than 10 years until your younger brother starts his own family. But by then, you'll be a big girl, and the neighbors won't like your family. Your parents have been in prison, and in the end, they might only be able to find you an older man after all their efforts. You think you can relax and take care of your husband and children, but your parents will let you continue to support your family. Jing Yunzhao narrowed his eyes and spoke word by word as if he was telling the truth. Wouldn't a person be easily bullied after being weak? When Jing Xiu heard this, her body trembled violently. She quickly shook her head, full of disbelief. But even if she clenched her teeth and refused to admit it, she was well aware of what the truth was. Jing Yunzhao's words wouldn't have any deviations, it could even be said to be an understatement. In fact, she had been having nightmares recently. She dreamed that she was being chased and beaten, and that her parents kept asking her to do things. It was endless. Jing Yunzhao glanced at her and pursed his lips. People always had to experience something to change. What she experienced was death, and then she had a new life. What should I do? I don't dare. Jing Xiu suddenly cried. She squatted on the ground and buried her head in her hands. Don't dare what? Don't dare to resist. That was because they all said that girls should be like that. They should help their parents and prepare everything for their younger brother. Ever since she was young, her neighbors had always praised her, but she didn't like to hear any of those praises. She was sensible and filial. This was because she knew in her heart that being sensible and filial meant that she was obedient. If there was work, she would do it. If there was no work, she would find work. She couldn't stay idle at home. She had even told her parents that she wanted to earn money to support them and her younger brother. If her parents allowed her to go to school, she would go. However, if they wanted her to take leave, she couldn't resist at all. Even if they wanted her to drop out of school, she could only comply. Actually, she didn't like it at all. Why wouldn't I dare? In fact, as long as you take a step forward, those people won't be able to touch you. However, if you stand still, then you can only wait for others to trap you again. It all depends on your choice. Jing Yunzhao said softly. How should he choose? Do I have a choice? She looked confused. If you agree, I can help you transfer schools. I can also find someone to change your name. The previous video didn't capture you very clearly. You can temporarily cut your hair. After changing your appearance, no one will associate you with the Jing Xiu of Shuichang village. I can temporarily subsidize your tuition. If your parents are released from prison and you want to go back to them, I won't stop you. However, if you change back to being Jing Xiu, you have to return everything you borrowed from me. Chapter 293. Jing Yunzhao still didn't have the ability to completely cut off Jing Xiu's ties with her past, but by changing her name slightly, others wouldn't associate her with the notorious Jing family, and her days would be a little better. Moreover, after changing schools, she wouldn't have to worry about not being able to get along with her classmates. She wouldn't have endless chores and could focus on her studies. Of course, Jing Yunzhao didn't want her to disown the Jing family. What she meant by turning back into Jing Xiao was actually referring to her personality. If she was as weak as before, it would be useless for her to help her. Jing Xiao's face was filled with shock, surprise, and worry. Her wish was actually very small. She just wanted to continue her studies, but in her current situation, she couldn't focus on her studies. But if she could change schools, why are you helping me? My parents treated you so badly. Jing Xiao didn't understand. Because you're different. Jing Yunzhao said matter-of-factly. If she was the same as Wang Xinfang, then even if she knelt down and begged her, she wouldn't consider her. She just felt that it was a pity for Jing Xiao to be the daughter of the Jing family. Could she become like Jing Yunzhao? Her voice was as soft as a whisper. Jing Yunzhao didn't answer. She knew clearly in her heart whether she could or not. It just depended on whether she had the determination. Jing Yunzhao wasn't in a hurry and waited patiently. Du Lin personally cooked a sumptuous meal. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Jing Xiao finally mustered up her courage. Sister Yunzhao, I want to change schools and change my name. I don't want people to know me. Jing Xiao said. The girl wasn't tall and was somewhat malnourished. Her hair was yellow and she looked very fragile. She matured early and matured early. She understood the hardships of life better than the average person. This was a good thing, but it was also sad. Jing Yunzhao nodded her head. Changing your name is just for a temporary quiet environment. Once this matter blows over, even if other people find out that you're a daughter of the Jing family, you can just openly admit it. You didn't steal, you didn't rob. You've always been upright, what are you afraid of? Jing Xiao nodded with a trace of expectation in her eyes. Since you've agreed, you can stay in the county for a few days. Once you've settled your name and school transfer, I'll send you to Serene City. Someone will take care of you there, Jing Yunzhao said. There were more acquaintances in Huaning County. Since he was going to transfer schools, it was better to do it in one go. The Jade Spirit Wine Company was currently in the limelight. As long as they paid enough money, it would be easy to settle these matters. Jing Xiao was stunned by the sudden change. She was a little worried about her gains and losses. Uncle Du liked her very much and there was a spare room in the house, so she decided to let her stay in the Du house temporarily. On the way back, Jing Yunzhao informed Pak Yuan that it was not a big problem. Although the name was changed, it didn't mean that they were going to completely cut off all ties with the Jing family. Jing Yunzhao was very clear on this point. 2 weeks later, everything was settled. The courtyard of the Jing family was covered in dust and no one stepped foot in it. Jing Xiao changed her name to Jing Fan. Jing Xiao had personally chosen this name from the pile of names that Xiang Jin had listed. This name wasn't special, but according to her own words, Jing Xiao sounded like a bitter-faced punching bag. Jing Fan, on the other hand, felt more positive. Xiang Jin was 33 years old. Ever since she returned to Serene City, she had been living alone. When she heard that Jing Yunzhao had taken in a 14-year-old little sister, she took over Jing Fan's daily life without hesitation. The place where she lived was also close to Jing Fan's new school. It was very convenient. Chapter 294. After making arrangements for Jing Fan, the tea house that Pak Yuan contacted also responded. She bought the location she wanted, but Pak Yuan negotiated with the other party to pay in installments. Also, Pak Yuan hired someone to be the manager of the tea house. This person was called Chu Rong. He was in his early 30s, but he had a way with words and was very interested in tea. He was completely different from Jiang Xiao's father, Jiang Wenxing. Jiang Wenxing pretended to be a scholar for the sake of business, but Chu Rong was the opposite. Although Jing Yunzhao wanted to get involved with the tea house, she didn't dare to go out recently. Although the Jing and Qiao families had collapsed, she was also greatly affected. Almost every time school ended, Jing Yunzhao would return to her room immediately and try to avoid going out. Although the incident had passed, everyone outside still felt that she was a lonely and pitiful little girl. For example, in this neighborhood, whenever someone saw her, they would take a few more glances with a sympathetic attitude. There was even an old lady who suddenly grabbed her hand and sighed, "Good child, you've suffered." Jing Yunzhao's entire being was in a mess. This wasn't the end. The school had already received gifts from all over for 2 weeks. Inside the office, several teachers were blocked by the gifts sent by those kind-hearted people and had nowhere to stand. Look at what's all this. Down jackets. It's only the end of September. Teacher Jean was speechless. Down jackets are nothing. Look at these, food, drinks, and some toys. Also, I heard that the school has received a lot of remittances. The total amount now is probably more than 200,000 yuan. The teacher next to her sighed. These people have good intentions, but they're too willful. When did Jing Yunzhao say that she needed help? The school has already announced so many times. There are so many people outside who are asking for help, but they didn't help. What nonsense. There were even people who spontaneously donated money to Jing Yunzhao. Each person didn't donate much, but there was strength in numbers. Everyone knew that Jing Yunzhao was now able to support himself. They didn't even know how to tell her about the money, for fear of hurting her self-esteem. Originally, the school thought that this so-called kind donation would be over in a few days. But now, it had been more than 2 weeks, and it was getting more and more intense. They had no choice but to inform Jing Yunzhao. But when they thought of Jing Yunzhao's arrogant face, they really couldn't open their mouths. The teachers had no choice but to sort out the things. That afternoon, Jing Yunzhao was called to the principal's office. The principal of No. 1 middle school was a very kind person. He spoke slowly, but he did not put on airs. He always wore a white shirt and an old jacket. As soon as he entered the principal's office, Jing Yunzhao saw all kinds of things piled up together. Some were books, some were clothes, and some were letters. Jing Yunzhao sat in the chair opposite the principal. There was a check of $270,000 on the table. Jing Yunzhao, I called you here to ask for your opinion. The principal coughed and then said, the things in this room and the money on the table are donations from people from all over the world. Although our school said that we don't accept donations, the momentum can't be stopped. So the school wants to ask for your opinion. Do you want to accept this money and things? After he finished speaking, the room was silent for a moment. It was slightly awkward. This was the first time the principal showed a helpless expression in front of a student. Jing Yunzhao suddenly understood why the school always asked her if she needed money and donations. It turned out that there were too many people who were kind from all over the world. Chapter 295. Although Jing Yunzhao knew that she had a pitiful life in the past, she had never thought of asking for sympathy from others, especially in such a way. However, this result was within reason. The netizens had initially thought that her parents were having a hard time, but they were able to gather more than 100,000 yuan in donations overnight. Now that they knew that she was the one who had been wronged, it was natural that they would donate more. The school had specifically rejected them, otherwise, the money would have been even more. However, although she loved money, she still had a bottom line. There was some money that she wasn't willing to touch. Jing Yunzhao pondered for a while. I won't accept this money, but it's definitely impossible to return it all. Then, how about I donate it? Actually, the school thinks the same way. The principal smiled bitterly and sighed. As the saying goes, one's mouth is soft when one receives gifts. Since you can support yourself now, there's no need for this kind of donation. Whether Jing Yunzhao accepted the money or not, it didn't affect the school at all. The reason why they were so concerned was because they were afraid that Jing Yunzhao would cause more trouble in the future. Once she accepted the donation, it was equivalent to accepting the kindness of others. However, this kind of kindness wasn't something that could be accepted by just anyone. In the future, there would be people constantly watching her. Once her grades wavered, people would say that she was too lazy to work. If she bought expensive things, it might be said that she was extravagant. People were very forgetful. They might soon forget Jing Yunzhao's pitiful state and only remember the money that they gave out. They would only want to know if it was used properly. When that time came, there would definitely be people who would be calculative and hope that Jing Yunzhao spent all the money on the blade of the blade. Jing Yunzhao's life wasn't really that bad, so in her opinion, there was no need to do so. Principal, everything here will be donated. Moreover, I hope that after the donation, there will be a clear list to prove that I didn't leave anything behind. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble you to post the list online. If anyone else sends things over, do the same. I believe that it won't be long before the momentum stops, Jing Yunzhao said. She couldn't leave anything behind, not even a pen or a book. Those people sympathized with her now, but sooner or later, she would make them forget about it. She would never be a pitiful person in the eyes of others. The principal nodded, but he was still shocked. Jing Yunzhao was only 16 years old. Children at this age didn't have much resistance towards temptation, but Jing Yunzhao could very straightforwardly push these things away. This kind of decisiveness and boldness was something even adults might not be able to do. Furthermore, it was not a small sum. More than 200,000 yuan was enough to pay the down payment for a house in the county. Are you sure? The principal asked again. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Not to mention that she didn't lack these 200,000 or 300,000 yuan now. Even if she really didn't have money, it was impossible for her to use these donations. She still had this bit of backbone. Besides, she wasn't without hands and feet, and she wasn't so pitiful that even a meal would be a problem. She couldn't accept such kind intentions. The principal's eyes lit up. He suddenly understood why most of the teachers in the school liked this child. She was constantly in trouble. People often came to the school to cause trouble, but the teachers all spoke up for her. Naturally, it was not just because of her good grades. Although it was distressing, it was also comforting to be able to remain calm in the face of trouble. Now that Jing Yunzhao herself had agreed, the principal's actions were swift and decisive. That very afternoon, he contacted the local orphanage and donated everything. The whole process of the donation was recorded, and the receipts were also clear as day. Very quickly, it was posted online. In an instant, there was an uproar. Chapter 296. There had always been a lot of people who cheated donations, and very few people would give away the money they had raised. Although the school had told Jing Yunzhao that she could support herself, in their eyes, Jing Yunzhao was only a 16-year-old girl. How could she have that ability? Therefore, many people did not take the rejection seriously and continued to donate. But who would have thought that the school would be so straightforward, which stunned those kind-hearted people? In addition, the school released a statement saying that Jing Yunzhao would not accept donations in the future, and hoped that they would donate the money to the people who really needed it. The statement had Jing Yunzhao's signature, so it was not fake at all. The reactions on the internet were different. Some people thought that it might be the school's publicity, while others felt that Jing Yunzhao had some backbone. But no matter what, the school was relieved that the donations were getting less and less. Jing Yunzhao endured another 2 months under the public's gaze, and when she went out, it was a little easier. After the attention on her decreased, the people who recognized her on the road were obviously much less. Even if some people recognized her, they no longer looked at her with concern and sympathy, and slowly became calm. Jing Yunzhao came out to reorganize the business of the tea house. After 2 months, Jing Yunzhao entered the tea house for the first time, but she was also shocked. When she first saw this shop, it was a little bleak, and the outside looked shabby, but now it looked brand new. The entrance of the tea house was pasted with gray bricks, and on both sides of the door were 2 elegant mahogany pillars, with a pair of couplets engraved on them, giving off an antique feeling. Above the door hung a plaque with the words Yuling Tea Pavilion engraved on it. The words were written in clerical script, with the head of a silkworm and the tail of a swallow. Jing Yunzhao's heart was already satisfied, and she walked in. At the entrance, there was an arched partition, with a few short bamboo plants on both sides, and majestic calligraphy and paintings hung on the wall. The atmosphere was very quiet, and Jing Yunzhao immediately fell in love with it. The furnishings were mostly based on the aesthetics of ancient times, but the design was integrated with modern techniques, and the craftsmanship was full. "Sorry, we only open tomorrow." Jing Yunzhao was looking around when a waiter walked over. The waiter was wearing a modified light-colored embroidered tang suit. He looked clean and neat. His long hair was tied up, but there was no makeup on his face. He looked very fresh. "Is Chu Rong here?" Jing Yunzhao asked. The person that Pak Yuan found was indeed the right person. Chu Rong had taken care of the decorations and the service staff all by herself, but it was simply impeccable. The waiter was stunned. "Are you talking about the manager? He's on the 2nd floor. I can take you there." Then, Jing Yunzhao followed him. From the private room on the 2nd floor, one could see the park next to the tea house. It looked more luxurious and quieter than the 1st floor, and the area was not small. As soon as he went upstairs, Jing Yunzhao smelled the fragrance of tea. "Manager, this lady is looking for you," the waiter said to Chu Rong, who was sipping tea. Jing Yunzhao forgot about the past. His first impression was that it was clean. The other party put down his teacup and walked over. He was stunned for a moment before he asked, "Is there something you need from me? Do you want to buy tea?" In addition to being a place for customers to chat and drink tea, there were also tea leaves to be sold. Someone had already sent the tea leaves over, but they were all fresh tea leaves. He had even specially stir-fried them himself. But he had to admit that those tea leaves were all good stuff, and he really did not want to waste any of them. "Hello, my surname is Jing Yunzhao," Jing Yunzhao said politely with a smile. Pak Yuan had already mentioned her to Chu Rong, but it was said that he only told him her surname, mainly because she was too famous before, and he was afraid that this person would be scared away. Chapter 297. Surname Jing. Boss Jing. The smile on Chu Rong's face froze. After a moment of surprise, she hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, someone just told me today that my boss's surname is Jing, so when you opened your mouth, I thought you were. How was that possible?" She was so young, she was still an underage child, right? Moreover, Jing Yunzhao, these 2 words were so familiar, as if she had heard them somewhere before. "Manager Chu, you're not mistaken." Jing Yunzhao smiled and extended her hand. With the slender hand in front of her, Chu Rong couldn't regain her senses. She wasn't mistaken. What did she mean? "You're the boss of this place." Chu Rong turned pale with fright, as if she had seen a ghost. After speaking, she frowned and carefully sized her up. "That's impossible. Pak Yuan told me that the owner of this tea house and the owner behind Yuling Wines are the same person." A tea house wasn't surprising, the main thing was Yuling Wines. Although the Jade Spirit Wine Company was not considered a big company, it was now very famous. Anyone who had tasted the company's wine had a very high evaluation of it. If one were to say which wine was selling the hottest right now, it would definitely be the Jade Spirit Wine Company. It was just that the wine was more popular in Ning City and hadn't spread to Huaning County yet. If you don't believe me, you can call and ask. Jing Yunzhao shrugged and extended her hand back. She took a few steps inside and looked around. This was such a big matter, so Chu Rong naturally had to ask clearly. She immediately dialed Pak Yuan's number. When Pak Yuan heard that Jing Yunzhao was going to the tea house, he was already prepared to answer the call. After all, such a young and beautiful girl suddenly appeared as the boss, no one could remain calm. However, when he heard Chu Rong's anxious voice on the other end of the phone, his heart bloomed with joy. Chu Rong was his junior in university. She was especially obsessed with tea. When she was in school, she used all her money to buy tea sets and tea leaves. She could be considered a weirdo. Later, after she graduated, she found a job in a tea house. Who knew that she would quit not long after working there? After so many years, she had been to at least 8, if not 10, tea houses. Later, she simply traveled around to study tea culture. It was not easy for him to invite her back. Pak Yuan knew in his heart that Chu Rong was capable and enthusiastic. She didn't work in other places for long because she couldn't stand the flaws of the tea leaves. After all, those tea houses mainly focused on making money. They only cared about customers and didn't care about the tea leaves themselves. However, Jing Yunzhao was different. This could be seen from Jade Spirit Wines. Pak Yuan, what's going on? Tell me, what's the name of our boss? How old is he? Is he a man or a woman? Chu Rong asked. Pak Yuan's ears were almost deafened. He smiled and said, "Have you seen her already? What do you think? Isn't it beautiful?" Chu Rong was flabbergasted. Really? Jing Yunzhao? A girl who looks like she's only 16 or 17. Are all kids these days so capable? She's not even an adult yet she can start a business. Moreover, she did so well yesterday. If that's the case, what's the point of having adults like us? We might as well go back to the furnace and start anew. That's right. Jing Yunzhao, the big boss that I'm most proud of. Pak Yuan was very sure. Chu Rong was stunned for a moment. She recalled the news about the boss that she had heard from Pak Yuan. He said that all the recipes for Jade Spirit wines were provided by the big boss. He also said that the big boss didn't show his true colors. He might not seem reliable, but in fact, he was very opinionated. Currently, all the big changes in Jade Spirit wines were approved by the big boss personally. Chapter 298. But he didn't say that the big boss looked like this. It wasn't that she wasn't good looking, but she was too young and beautiful. Bai Yuan quickly hung up the phone. Chu Rong instantly felt embarrassed. Facing such a little girl, he didn't know what to say for a moment. Moreover, the bosses in the past were mostly pure businessmen, but the one in front of him. If he said something wrong, would she cry? "You, Boss Jing." Chu Rong opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Jing Yunzhao glanced at him. "You made all these tea leaves?" Chu Rong nodded. "Not bad." Jing Yunzhao expressed his satisfaction, but said, "But when our business is good in the future, you won't be able to make all the tea by yourself. You can hire a professional to help, I know, but I'm curious. Isn't there a tea plantation nearby? Where did our tea leaves come from?" Chu Rong asked subconsciously. After he spoke, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. You don't have to worry about that. It's our business secret. But after we open, you can go to the south to take a look. If there are good tea suppliers, you can contact them and buy some high-quality and rare tea leaves, Jing Yunzhao added. Purchasing goods from outside could avoid unnecessary suspicion. Although Chu Rong didn't quite understand, he agreed very cooperatively. But he suddenly realized that he had already approved of Jing Yunzhao after just 2 or 3 sentences. She had a trustworthy temperament. When she spoke, she was very dignified and didn't sound like a child at all. However, as Chu Rong was observing, he suddenly remembered where he had heard the name Jing Yunzhao before. Some time ago, he had an elder who heard that he was in Huaning County, so he specially called him to ask about it. He said that he wanted him to go take a look at a girl called Jing Yunzhao in Yizhong's school. He then rambled on and on about how pitiful that child was, how she was abused and framed by others, but at that time, he had just agreed to Pak Yuan's request and started to reorganize the tea plantation. How could he have the time to spare? He refused the elder's request and was scolded because of it. If that was the case, then his boss was the child who was rumored to be on the internet. Didn't they say that she was an orphan and had a hard time? Chu Rong had a stomach full of questions, but in front of Jing Yunzhao, it was not good to ask about these private matters, so she could only suppress her curiosity. Then, he introduced Jing Yunzhao to the characteristics and flavors of various tea leaves. He found that although she knew little about tea leaves, she was clear about the cooking methods, functions, and taboos of some tea leaves. He was amazed. It was not until Jing Yunzhao left that Chu Rong excitedly called Pak Yuan again to ask about it. This big boss was simply a genius. She only needed to listen to what he said once. It was not an exaggeration to say that she had a photographic memory. Chu Rong asked what she didn't understand, only to hear Bai Yuan roll his eyes and say, "The rumors online are true. Yun Zhao doesn't have parents, and her adoptive parents only treated her normally. She was also framed by someone, but saying that she's in a difficult situation right now is all nonsense. You'll know if you search the internet yourself. The matter of the donation has long passed." When Chu Rong heard this, she immediately went online to check. Only then did she realize that there were indeed many posts about Jing Yunzhao. After reading the whole story, her heart felt like it had been run over by a train. She felt heartache, shock, and even a little admiration. She was calm in the face of danger and had the spirit to swallow mountains and rivers, right? Chapter 299. Chu Rong's curiosity towards Jing Yunzhao rose to another level. She couldn't believe it. How could a little girl who grew up under oppression have the ability to open a company? Pak Yuan said that she met a mysterious master, but this kind of so-called master was not something that everyone could meet. If one didn't have the ability, they wouldn't be able to get the master's attention. With complicated feelings towards Jing Yunzhao, Chu Rong waited for the opening of the tea house the next day. Their tea house didn't invite many guests. After all, it was just a tea house in Huaning County. They only invited some businessmen and officials who liked tea, so the scale wasn't too grand. But Chu Rong didn't expect that the tea house wouldn't be as desolate as she thought it would be. When the time came, a few cars stopped in front. She didn't invite many people. Only a few people who were curious about the relationship between Yuling Tea Pavilion and Yuling Wine came. The person with the highest status was only a department head. But soon after, another group of people appeared. After those people got out of the car, they looked at each other. Those big shots of Huaning County who had already entered the door instantly bowed their heads. Everyone's identity shocked her. As a tea fanatic, she didn't know many people, but these people knew each other. When they introduced themselves and chatted, she naturally heard everything clearly. Moreover, the name cards were handed over one by one. How could the identity written on them be fake? What's going on, manager? The waiters were also stunned. Yesterday, the boss had specially told them that there wouldn't be many people today. He had even introduced some of the invited guests to them so that they could be prepared. However, who would have thought that things would develop in a completely different direction from what they had imagined? Hello, Manager Chu, right? Miss Jing didn't come. A man stood in front of Chu Rong and asked. The man was well-dressed and looked very imposing. Chu Rong's mouth twitched as she smiled. She might not be here for a while. Chu Rong was stunned. Didn't Pak Yuan say that Jing Yunzhao's identity would be kept a secret? After all, she was still young and her reputation was already big enough. If Yuling Wine was involved, she wouldn't have a peaceful life in the future. Even if she wanted to go to school peacefully, it would be impossible. So she's sure she'll come. Then I'll have to trouble Manager Chu to arrange a seat. I don't need a private room. I'll just wait in the hall. After the man finished speaking, he didn't forget to call out to his friends. Chu Rong was completely confused by the situation. If these people were here because of what happened on the internet, they shouldn't be big shots. Among them, there was even a city leader who had accompanied his father here. Now, he was actually sitting obediently in the hall and looking around. As for the person just now, the name on his business card was actually a director of a large corporation. That was a corporation, not a small company. Chu Rong hurriedly ordered people to greet them. The firecrackers outside kept on going. The situation inside the house slowly became quiet, but it was a little strange. That was because even though the tea had been served, these people actually didn't drink it. All of them were looking outside, waiting for someone. Could it be that he was waiting for Jing Yunzhao? Chu Rong had worked in many tea houses, but this was the first time she had encountered such a situation. Those guests who came out of curiosity were all extremely happy at this moment. For example, a certain department head. Originally, after receiving the invitation from Yuling Tea House, he didn't want to come. After all, it was just a tea house and there was no need for him to specially attend. However, when he saw the name Yuling Tea House, he was curious. He thought that it might have something to do with Pak Yuan, so he put down his pride and came to take a look. Who would have thought that he would see so many people that he wouldn't normally see? Chapter 300. The atmosphere in the tea house was stagnant. Chu Rong only hoped that Jing Yunzhao would come quickly. He really wanted to know what was going on. Just as he was looking forward to it, there was a sudden commotion in the hall. The people from Ning City suddenly stood up and walked towards the door in unison. Chu Rong originally thought that it was Jing Yunzhao, but when she looked up, it was actually an old man and a boy around 16 or 17 years old. Elder Tang, you are here. Sorry for not going out to meet you. The group director from before politely extended his hand and slightly bowed. Oh, it's little Sue. You're really fast. Elder Tang glanced at him and smiled. On the other side, the deputy mayor also walked over with a face of surprise. Elder Tang, why are you here too? This girl is my grandson's savior. She said that the tea here is delicious, so of course I have to come and try it. After Elder Tang finished speaking, he walked inside. Everyone opened up a path for him. Although the people did not fight with the officials, Elder Tang had absolute authority in Ning City. He controlled countless businesses and was rich in assets. In this evil era of money, his status was naturally high. Moreover, he was an elder. The county minister who came to make up the numbers was already unable to close his mouth. He originally thought that this tea house was Pak Yuan's business, so many people gave him face. But now, he did not think so anymore. No matter how powerful Pak Yuan was, he was only the general manager of a new company. His assets could not be compared to the people here, not to mention the deputy mayor. If it was the county magistrate, then it would be fine, but this was the deputy mayor. Also, although he did not know this old man, his style was truly invincible. Everyone called him Elder Tang, so he could not help but think that he was the richest man in Ning City, Tang Lin. Chu Rong was already somewhat numb. Just now, he secretly called Pak Yuan and asked him if these people were arranged by him. Who knew that Pak Yuan was even more dumbfounded than him? He even asked him to keep the name cards well and that he would personally come and get them later. These big shots were not people that anyone could meet, and not just anyone could receive their name cards. If Pak Yuan had known that a tea house could cause such a big commotion, he would have begged Jing Yunzhao to open one. Of course, although he was excited, Pak Yuan was also confused. He felt that this matter was too strange. How did Jing Yunzhao do it? At this time, Jing Yunzhao arrived late. However, when she appeared, everyone was clearly even more excited than Chu Rong. The scene was almost the same as when they welcomed Elder Tang. Dr. Jing, you're finally here. It's only been a few days since we last met. Dr. Jing, you seem to have gotten prettier. Dr. Jing, quickly come and take a look at me. Have I completely recovered? Chu Rong's mouth twitched. Didn't these people love the tea leaves he brewed? What kind of situation was it to discuss the illness in the tea house? Could he drive all these people away? Thank you, everyone, for giving me some face. Otherwise, this tea house would have been deserted today. I just don't know what everyone thinks of these tea leaves. If you don't like it, you can ask the waiter to change it. Today's tea is on me, Jing Yunzhao said. Speaking of which, she still had to thank Elder Su. These people were either patients she had treated or their family members. When she mentioned to old Master Su that she had opened a tea house, she asked him how she could make a name for herself. In the end, old Master Su rolled his eyes at her and scolded her for being as stupid as a cow. Only then did she realize the true purpose of Elder Su's referral of patients to her. On one hand, it was to spread her medical skills. On the other hand, it was to cultivate her power and connections. Chapter 301. Very few ordinary people knew Old Man Su's name, but the rich and powerful could find out. Old Man Su never treated anyone, but those people kept harassing him. That was why Old Man Su decided to kick all the stinky balls to her. She cured these people's illnesses, and that was an irreversible favor. In Old Man Su's words, these people couldn't wait for her to accept the consultation fee and had some small requests every day. The higher one climbed, the more afraid they were of death. If she left after taking the consultation fee and never contacted them again, these people would probably panic. However, if she occasionally asked them to perform, not only would they not refuse, they would even gladly endure malt sugar. This way, they would feel that if there were any problems with their bodies in the future, she would not hesitate to save their lives. They could offend business partners, but they would definitely not be willing to offend a doctor. If it was an ordinary doctor, it would be fine, but she was different. She was the miracle doctor that Old Man Su had praised to the heavens. Moreover, she was not alone. The title of miracle doctor was very powerful, and the miracle doctor that Old Man Su had introduced was on another level. After being reminded by Old Man Su, Jing Yunzhao did not hesitate to send these people an invitation text message. As expected, these people almost instantly called her back and said that they would definitely come. They were much more excited than she was. Of course, Jing Yunzhao also specifically said that they could bring friends who liked tea over. These people today were giving her face, but if they did not like tea, the tea house would still be deserted in the future. Therefore, the main thing was to publicize the taste of the tea. However, Jing Yunzhao did not tell anyone that the tea house was hers. She only said that it was a good place to cultivate and nourish the body. Old Man Su was very satisfied with her attitude of fooling people. Now that even Jing Yunzhao had made an appearance, everyone's hearts also returned to their stomachs. Smelling the fragrance of the tea in front of them, they focused their attention and took a few sips. But when it entered their mouths, they were stunned for a moment, followed by a burst of joy. Most of them often came into contact with tea. After all, this tea had some cultural heritage and could improve their style. Moreover, it was the best choice for gifts. Giving wine was too vulgar, and giving money was too straightforward. This tea was different. If it was chosen correctly, it was a kind of cultured culture. Even Old Man Tang could not help but savor it for a while. Good tea. No wonder Dr. Jing strongly recommended it. Looks like I didn't come here in vain today. One of them said. Jing Yunzhao had never seen the person who spoke before. Thinking back, he should be a family member of one of the patients. The deputy mayor at the side also nodded his head, praising Jing Yunzhao as well. Dr. Jing, the rumors about you some time ago. The deputy mayor said softly. Previously, when his father was seriously ill, all the doctors were helpless. It was pure luck that he found Jing Yunzhao. At that time, he didn't even believe that she had the ability to treat him. However, he didn't expect that after a few doses of the decoction, his father actually began to get better. Although his body was still a little weak, as long as he was nourished as usual, it wouldn't take long for him to completely recover. One had to know that at that time, his father couldn't even get out of bed. But now, he could follow him to Huaning County to taste tea. Jing Yunzhao's methods were so miraculous, how could he not give him some face? Besides, he liked tea as well. The taste of this tea was indeed very good. The natural aroma of the tea leaves was very strong and fresh. It was much better than the ones he drank before. Chapter 302. When the deputy mayor mentioned the rumors on the internet, everyone looked over. Thank you for your concern. Now, everything is back on track. Jing Yunzhao's lips curled into a smile, looking very magnanimous. Chu Rong suddenly felt that she had lived all these years in vain. Jing Yunzhao was younger than her by more than 10 years, but she was much calmer than her. Facing these people, she didn't even have stage fright. It was a simple sentence, but it made people feel very comfortable. Although she didn't explain much, it was just right. The people present were all old foxes. Their words of concern might not necessarily mean that they really wanted to know what happened to her. Most of them were just being polite. If Jing Yunzhao were to talk non-stop about the things that happened to her during this period of time, then the only thing left for them would be awkwardness. After all, there was an age gap. Who would have a good impression of a group of people listening to a child talk non-stop? But now, Jing Yunzhao was calm and simple. She responded to other people's concerns and saved a lot of trouble. She even gave people a feeling of magnanimity and strength. Chu Rong couldn't help but secretly give Jing Yunzhao a thumbs up in her heart. No wonder Pak Yuan worked so hard for her. Every time he mentioned her, he was full of praise. This aura was completely enough. Jing Yunzhao only showed her face to maintain a relationship with everyone. She didn't say anything else and went to Elder Tang's seat to sit down. The others were also happy to be free. They began to really enjoy this afternoon tea time and chatted about their own things. Grandpa Tang, I didn't expect you to come personally. I'm flattered by your favor. Jing Yunzhao personally made tea for the old man and said with a smile. The old man smacked his lips. I haven't seen you for a while. Also, the feng shui of Huaning County is good for people. This old man can only live longer if I take a few breaths. Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and nodded. Elder Tang's eyes flashed. He drank the tea to hide his guilt. Previously, he was caught in the middle of the He family's matter. He was afraid that this girl would be estranged from him, so when he heard that she wanted to give him a few bags of tea to try, he decided to come personally. Smart people didn't need to speak too clearly. At his age, it wasn't good for him to apologize to a little girl. Now that he was here, this girl should understand what he meant. Jing Yunzhao naturally understood. He couldn't blame the Tang family because of the He family. Therefore, the atmosphere was harmonious. It was just that the Yuling Tea Pavilion was indeed bustling with noise and excitement. However, in the number 1 tea pavilion on the other side of the street, there were people who were gnashing their teeth. The 3 members of the Jiang family were all present. Looking at the long queue of flower baskets and cars parked in front of the newly opened tea house, they were so angry that they wanted to rush up and smash the signboard. The Jiang family's tea house had a certain advantage. Originally, there was only one tea house in the vicinity, and many people who liked tea liked to come to his tea house to have a drink. However, ever since the Heartbreak Grass incident, the tea house was deserted, and not a single person could be seen every day. The tea here almost killed someone. Which customer would dare to come after hearing such words? Even if he personally contacted those old customers to explain, no one cared. His business had already plummeted, but at this time, someone actually dared to step on his reputation and open a new tea house. Dad, who is the owner of the tea house? Why are there so many people driving here? Also, no one came out after going in for so long. Could there be something fishy? Jiang Xia also asked with concern. Ever since Chao Hongya disappeared, Jiang Xia was depressed for a few days. However, after comforting himself for a while, his heart was completely healed. His mentality was so good that no one could compare to it. Chapter 303. Jiang Xiao's question made Jiang Wenxing even more irritated. He grabbed a Yixing clay teapot that he had just bought and smashed it on the table. How would I know what's going on? Bastard, to actually open at this time, he's simply purposely going against me. Jiang Wenxing raged. 2 months ago, this shop was bought by someone, but during this period of time, it had been under renovation. There was no movement, so he observed it every day, but didn't take it to heart. Because the location of the shop wasn't too good, the surroundings were very quiet and relatively remote, but who would have thought that there would be so many people on the first day? Those cars attracted the attention of many people, and just a moment ago, a few of his regular customers had already walked in. Why did you smash the teapot? Does this teapot not cost money? Don't tell me you don't feel the heartache because you didn't earn this money. Mother Jiang saw that the Yixing clay teapot was instantly smashed and said with pain. Jiang Wenxing's expression was ugly. This tea house had compensated him quite a lot of money. The 3 families that he had almost poisoned to death had asked him for 600,000 yuan, and the value of the things he had smashed wasn't small, at least tens of thousands. Other than that, there hadn't been any income for the past 2 months, but the shop's expenses hadn't decreased at all, including water, electricity, and labor. In order to warm up the business, he had specially packed some good tea and sent it to some of his regular customers, but in the end, they were all returned, saying that they didn't dare to drink it. He was so depressed that he wanted to die. Why didn't they dare to drink this tea? They clearly loved to drink it in the past. Wasn't it just a mistake of putting something in the wrong place? Was there a need to be so scared? Even when walking in front of his shop, they had to specially avoid it. Simply despicable. Now, the new teapot and tea set in the shop were all bought with the money earned from his wife's clothing store. His heart was also very depressed, but as a man, he really didn't want to hear his wife say such things. Isn't it just a broken teapot? When the business gets better, we can earn it back in a blink of an eye. Jiang Wenxing said gloomily. Mother Jiang rolled her eyes, but how can the business get better? Look, other people have already bullied us at our doorstep, but you only know how to smash things here. Even if the customers want to come, they will be scared away when they see you like this. You are my wife, how can you say such disheartening words? If you hadn't signed the IOU, I wouldn't have to pay so much. Do you know how much effort I'll have to put in to earn back 600,000 yuan with a wave of your hand? When Mother Jiang heard this, she immediately felt wronged. Although it had been a long time, she still trembled in fear when she recalled the situation of that night. You still dare to bring it up? In the end, it's all because of you. If you didn't recognize the wrong medicinal herb, everything would have been fine. And do you think I want to write an IOU? Wasn't it because Xiao Xia was beaten up? He's your son. How can you not feel bad for him? Don't tell me you want to watch those people beat our Xiao Xia into a cripple. Mother Jiang didn't want to be outdone and continued to roar. Jiang Xia originally didn't want to get involved because the couple had been quarreling a lot recently and he was already used to it. But now, his mother had dragged him into this mess, which really annoyed him. Was it a good thing for others to beat him up, something worth publicizing? Wasn't she deliberately making him lose face by bringing it up all the time? Although there were no customers in the shop, the waiters were still there. What would others think of him? Dad, Mom, stop quarreling. Jiang Xia frowned and shouted, isn't it just another tea house? Can't we just go over and take a look? Who knows, maybe the people inside are all hired. Chapter 304. After Jiang Xia finished speaking, Mother Jiang turned her head away in grievance. Jiang Wenxing awkwardly sighed. Little Xia, go take a look with your mother. It's not convenient for me. Everyone on this street knows me. Jiang Wenxing said. Jiang Xia and Mother Jiang agreed. They were all in the same line of work. If Jiang Wenxing went to take a look, he would lose face. The mother and son tidied up their clothes and went out after a while. This street wasn't like the main road outside. It wasn't a two-way street, so it was more convenient for customers to shop. The business of the shops nearby was also better. In the past, the further they went, the quieter it would be. However, it was different today. The surrounding customers who were buying antiques and cultural goods walked around. When they saw the strange scene, they also walked over to take a look. Thus, the flow of people on this street wasn't small at all. It even attracted a few shops around Yuling Tea Pavilion. In the past, everyone was too lazy to go inside. They felt that they could buy something suitable outside. But now, some people changed their minds. Those shops usually didn't have many customers. Thus, when the shop owners saw someone, they would be very enthusiastic and try to rope them in. They weren't as cold and disrespectful as the shops on the street. The fragrance of wine didn't fear the depth of the alley. However, the fragrance of Yuling Tea Pavilion's tea spread far and wide. Jiang Xia and Mother Jiang walked to the door and hesitated. Mom, I know this car. It's a top-grade luxury model. I heard that it costs tens of millions. Mother Jiang was hesitating if she should go in. Jiang Xia suddenly pointed at one of the cars. This one isn't cheap either. I'm afraid it costs a few million. Jiang Xia was shocked. He was a guy. Of course, he had some interest in cars. Usually, he would search for videos or introductions about cars on the internet. He fantasized that one day, he could drive such a flashy mount and take in his beloved beauties, but when this car was placed in front of him, he didn't even dare to touch it. At the very least, he had some self-awareness. If he accidentally damaged the car, his family might go bankrupt. Jiang Xia's eyes were already red. His heart was filled with jealousy. They were all humans, but why was there such a big difference? Some people were born with such luxurious things, but his family was still driving a small broken car that cost more than 300,000. In the past, he felt that the cars at home were pretty good, but compared to the cars in front of him, they were simply rubbish. Such an expensive car, it can't be rented, right? Mother Jiang was even more terrified. Their family's tea house had been open for more than 10 years, but they had never seen such a spectacular scene. Comparisons were odious. Jiang Xia curled his lips. How can you rent it? Forget it, son. Don't worry about the car. Let's go in and take a look. Mother Jiang pulled her son into the house. However, as soon as they entered the door, the two of them were surprised. Everything in the shop was new, and there were many eye-catching plants in the house. The tea fragrance was everywhere, and it made people feel comfortable. The most important thing was the decoration. It was not extravagant, but it was quiet and elegant. In comparison, their tea house was a little shabby. Hello, are there two of you? The waiter smiled like a flower, dazzling Mother Jiang's eyes. What are their waitresses like? His face was expressionless. This kind of passionate look had only appeared a long time ago. However, Mother Jiang shook her head. New waitresses were all like this. Once they got used to the environment, they would know how hard life was. By then, how would they be able to smile all the time? This is your family's first day of business. There should be a discount for this tea, right? Mother Jiang asked. Chapter 305. The moment Mother Jiang opened her mouth, Jiang Xia froze for a moment and his face turned slightly red. He had always cared about his face and wouldn't do something like asking for a discount. But thinking about it carefully, Yuling Tea Pavilion and his family's tea house were sworn enemies. He couldn't possibly let them earn the money, so it was reasonable for his mother to ask. The waiter didn't find it strange. After all, it was the first day of opening and there were indeed some people who liked to join in the fun and take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, new shops wouldn't use discounts to attract customers. Our manager said that the customers before 2 in the afternoon can taste the tea for free. Please, the waiter was very polite. Originally, there were only some discounts today, but many of the customers here were invited by Jing Yunzhao for publicity purposes. Although they didn't care about the cost of a cup of tea, they cared about their face. Thus, Jing Yunzhao directly told Chu Rong that it was free of charge. Today, the congratulatory gifts they brought were more expensive than the tea. Since these invited customers were free of charge, the other customers who heard the news naturally couldn't be an exception. Otherwise, when the real customers saw that other people didn't pay, they would definitely feel disappointed. Thus, Chu Rong decided to set a time. Mother Jiang took out her phone and looked at the time. It was 1:30, half an hour away from 2. Son, let's go in. Mother Jiang was overjoyed. She turned around and said, Waiter, can we get a pot of special Junshan silver needle and Longjing tea for the two of us? The waiter's mouth twitched, but he still squeezed out a smile, of course. Then make it thicker. Mother Jiang's tail seemed to be wagging. Seeing that there was still a seat in the hall, she directly brought Jiang Xia over. For the customers who came later, the waiter mostly let them go to the private rooms upstairs. Because the atmosphere in the hall downstairs was a bit serious and they mostly talked about business matters, they were afraid that the other customers wouldn't be able to relax. But they didn't expect the mother and son to be unafraid. Manager, they want Junshan silver needle and Longjing tea. The waiter said to Chu Rong. Many customers didn't even ask about the price. Because there was a tea list, the waiter would only tell the customers if it was free of charge at the end. Of course, there were a few people who ordered more expensive tea, but they were more restrained and wouldn't order 2 pots at the same time. They are the wife and son of the number 1 tea house on the street. Another waiter said, then explained, I used to work for them. This family is very stingy. Every type of tea required a different number of grams of tea leaves to brew a pot of tea, but the ones that Jiang Wenqing brewed were almost the same. A pot of tea in their shop costs more than 600 yuan, and the highest is more than 1,300 yuan. There are at most 16 grams of tea leaves in a pot of tea. The waiter said again. In this way, the tea in the Jiang family's tea house, for the ordinary level of tea, was worth 20,000 to 50,000 yuan per caddy. It was simply a huge profit. Chu Rong hated people who treated tea leaves as a way to make a living and did not respect them at all. However, Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows and smiled. Since they want it, let's just serve it. I'm afraid they won't be able to taste anything even if they chewed on it. They still had to keep their word. They had already said that it would be free before 2:00, so they definitely wouldn't go back on their word. However, as a member of the number 1 tea house, what would outsiders think if they knew that he was here to drink tea? Jing Yunzhao directly found a waiter and arranged for her to walk around. After a while, the waiter served all the tea that the mother and son of the Jiang family wanted. Chapter 306. Mother Jiang looked at the approaching waiter and chuckled softly. This authentic Junshan silver needle was a type of yellow tea. The cheapest one was more than 2,000 yuan per caddy, and the special grade one was probably more than 10,000 yuan. Of course, if it was a green tea type silver needle, it would be cheaper and could be bought for 100 yuan. Since she said that she wanted special grade, if these people gave her cheap goods, she wouldn't be satisfied. When the teapot was put down, Mother Jiang immediately took a look. After all, her husband was in this line of work and had been influenced by him, so she could tell the difference. She only saw that the tea leaves were of uniform length. The tea sprouts were golden yellow inside, and the outer layer was white. Moreover, they were wrapped tightly and were as thin as needles. There was no mistake. Mother Jiang curled her lips. He was willing to spend. In fact, not all the tea leaves in this tea house were expensive. Tea leaves that were worth dozens of yuan per pot could be found everywhere. However, since Jing Yunzhao's tea house sold tea leaves to the outside world, it was impossible for him to only buy the ordinary ones. Mother Jiang looked at the 2 pots of tea and felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. How rich did the owner of this tea house have to be to let them drink so casually? But thinking about it, it was only a pot of tea and didn't use much tea leaves. However, they couldn't let the owner continue to take advantage of them. This tea had to be brewed a few more times and drank enough. However, Mother Jiang didn't know that the waiters sent out by Jing Yunzhao had already begun to stroll around the street. The waiter had worked at the first tea house before, so he was relatively familiar with the people on this street. He went to a few familiar shops and chatted with others for a while. When chatting, it was inevitable that the old and new owners would be compared. Naturally, there was a difference. I haven't seen the owner. Our tea house only has a manager now. The owner usually doesn't come. The waiter blinked and smiled. In the entire tea house, besides Chu Rong, no one else knew who the owner was. And they only thought that Jing Yunzhao was the disciple of a doctor friend of Chu Rong's. After all, the guests today also called her a doctor, so everyone naturally guessed and didn't care. Is the treatment of this Yuling tea pavilion better than the original first tea house? The lady boss of this tea house was also a gossipy person and asked. They were all neighbors on the same street. Of course, he had to ask more clearly. He might be useful in the future. The waiter nodded. It's much higher. Although we haven't met the boss, she treats us much better than Jiang Wenxing. The manager said that the store doesn't keep old goods, especially things like biscuits. If they aren't sold out on the same day, we'll take them back. Unlike Jiang Wenxing, who keeps them for the next day. Even if he can't sell them, he'll keep them until they break. By the way, Jiang Wenxing's wife and son are in our shop right now. Although it was a tea house, some people didn't like to just drink tea, so there were some biscuits and fruits in the store. However, when the other party heard that the Jiang family's mother and son had gone to Yuling Tea Pavilion, his interest was immediately piqued. What are they going there for? Our tea is delicious, so why don't you come and try it? Besides, it's not like you don't know that the Jiang family loves to take advantage of others. Our tea is free before 2:00 in the afternoon. These two people ordered 2 pots of good tea and kept drinking it. The waiter's face was filled with indignation as he continued, if the tea they drank was sold, it would be worth several hundred yuan. How shameless!